Good evening, everybody. Let me share my video real quick. I'm sharing my video real quick. Let me see. Baby, I got to find my intros. This would be so raggedy. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Lit Lane. We are back. I am Shani. It is the end of the day. And we are ready to do the actual conclusion of Georgia versus Leilani Simon. Okay. Hey, Sincerity, how you doing? Hey, Winter. Hey, Daniel. Winter, Tiki. POP, hold me down. Winter and Tiki. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening, Foot Soldier, baby. If nobody else here, everybody here is supposed to be here, especially my moderators. Okay. Foot Soldier, POP, hold me down. Drinking me some nighttime coffee out of my Lit Lane merch. That is the Lit Lane first official merch. Tomorrow I'm going to be ready with the link so y'all can get y'all Lit Lane merch. I am so proud of my little coffee cup, y'all. I think it's so cute. I love how it came out. It came out so vivid and so cute. And y'all know I designed this myself. Y'all know this is my logo. One of my logos that I designed myself with the road and the YouTube symbol and the burning up the headlines. Girl, foot. Ain't nobody worried about you, girl. So tonight, I started to do this on my other software, but I just got blessed to get my StreamYard for the rest of the year. So I said, let me go ahead and come on StreamYard. But I'm still paying for the other software too. But I'm gonna make the most out of my StreamYard. Hey, Kurt Vixen. And I'm gonna keep working and learning how to do. I do need a trial watch mug. I wanted to do me a what I seen because I know the logo will be really cute, and I wanted to do what I seen. I wanted to do a round for round, pound for pound. No, a what I seen, 100% pure beef, and a Lit Lane jury box one. What's up, pretty eye Shanny? So I think that's the ones I'll do. You know what I'm saying? I can do it. Don't cost me nothing to do all the different designs. And then I'm going to order my little eyelashes today. I really like how they came out, except for this one right here. I wish it would go up a little bit more in the corner. But the glasses keep pushing them down. But anywho, so I was looking around the streets real quick. And ain't nothing going on worth talking about. I said, let me come on here and we can finalize this trial. So tonight, Shanny, if you had not been watching up until now, this is a good time to watch. It's the last night, but we finna watch the closing arguments. And during the closing arguments, each side is gonna make their case. So even if you hadn't been watching and following along, this is one live where you can definitely watch it and understand what's going on and pretty much get the whole gist of everything, right? So again, we're gonna watch the closing argument first by the state, then by the defense, of course. And I think that this closing argument, they actually have a rebuttal, which you rarely see a rebuttal. So that's kind of interesting. And then we'll see the verdict, okay? So thank y'all for joining me. Hit the like. And unfortunately, I think that on my other software, this content looks so much better. Y'all know how it look against my background and how I can cut it. It looks so much better on my other software. So I think I'm gonna keep doing the trial stuff on that. But that's neither here nor there. Oh yeah, and the next trial we're gonna start next week is gonna be the sex torture trial. Sex torture trial. That's an absolute trip. Hey, Lady T. That's what's up. That's what's up. Thank you for joining. And so we're going to get into the defense closing argument with the state of Georgia versus Leilani Simon. Let's get started. We got some stuff to get through tonight. I don't know why it sounds like that. Oh, it sounds really bad. Hold on, hold on. Hold on, hold on, hold on. Can I close it? Oh Lord, now I can't close it. Hold on, y'all. I don't know why it sounds like that, but it sounds horrible. Hold on. Let me close that down. I don't know why it sounds like that, but it sounds really bad in my earphones. So I know it got to sound bad to y'all. Um, I think I have it recorded twice. So let me see if the other one is better. One moment. Do I only have the closing arguments once, or do I have it? I thought I had it twice. Let me see. Closing arguments, and that's from earlier this week, and then I did it today. Let me check the one I did today. Cause that one sounds really bad. Drop a one if y'all can hear that that audio was tore up. It sounded real bad. Let me see. Sorry, y'all. Every time I think I'm ready, I'm not ready, okay? I be thinking I'm ready though, for real. Seriously, I do. Now I re-recorded this today, so maybe the copy I have for today is better. Let me see. Damn. Oh well, I'm just gonna share it from I'm just gonna share it from Court TV. Ain't no big deal. Ain't no big deal. Ain't no big deal. So let me set it up to share the screen from Court TV, and then we'll just have won't have all that feedback. It ain't no biggie. Let me pull this up one moment. Court TV. Closing arguments. I hope y'all had a good day. I really had a great day on YouTube today, and I had a great day everywhere. My son, his report card getting ready to come out. That much time has already passed. I think in a week or so they're gonna be sending out the report cards, but he got all A's and B's thus far, which is great. I'm very pleased about that, and I'm hoping that he's pleased about it as well. You know, it's one thing for me to be happy about it, but I want him to learn how to be happy about that, to take pride in that. You know, it's his grades, but still going in the right direction. Okay, so apparently, for whatever reason, that's how Court TV was sounding that day. It was just sounding really horrible like that. Hey, Miss Step 219. Okay, so it was bad. Well, I'm going to share directly from Court TV, and apparently they had some type of problem going on with their audio that day. Because here it is here. Can y'all see this? Let me see. Okay, y'all can see it. Um, See, that's this.
Last Monday, during opening statements, I made a couple commitments. All right, these are very basic commitments. I told you that.
All right, opening arguments. Y'all have to cut y'all headphones down or something. Hey, Daquan. You at work listening? All right, all right. Closing arguments.
Threw him in a dumpster and lied about it a whole bunch of times.
Hey, Six. Good evening. Good to see you.
Picked apart for multiple ever-changing stories and Doug Quinton out of the window. Now, what did the defense
I love
tell
this
you that the
lawyer for
evidence
some
was
reason.
going to show? The defense told you that this case was going to be about rumor, speculation, gossip, innuendo, words like that. What happened after that? Well, what happened after that is that you heard from almost 40 witnesses and received almost 100 exhibits.
Hey,
close to
LaVon.
100 exhibits, all of which lead you to the inescapable conclusion that the defendant did, that she killed Quentin and covered it up. Now, that presumption of evidence, or presumption of innocence.
Hey, Rudy Shaker, good evening, y'all. Closing arguments. The state is giving his
frame
now.
of mind that you have to adopt at the beginning of a trial so that you don't prejudge the case. Everybody's entitled to that, all of us. Right, but it is gone now. Every witness we call, every exhibit we introduce, every bit of evidence that you see has chipped away at that presumption, and you no longer have to presume her innocent. And you should not presume her innocent. She sits before you right now proven guilty. Most of the evidence in this case was anything but rumor. All of it really was anything but rumor, gossip, and innuendo. Most of it was surveillance footage, GPS data, DNA, and so forth. We did call a couple of people.
Hey, Miss Juicy Reviews.
Knew the defendant, saw how
He does, Tiki. I think that's why I like him so much.
They basically told you that she hated him. But that wasn't rumor. That wasn't gossip. That was based on things that they saw and they proved. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what the evidence in the case shows and how the law applies to it. Because you're about to have to go back and apply the law to the facts of the case. Okay. Let's talk about evidence. Evidence is simply the means by which any fact that is put in issue is established or disproved. Evidence includes all of the testimony of the witnesses and any exhibits. You know, sometimes you'll hear people say stuff like, well, there's no evidence, there's just a bunch of people came in and said some things. Testimony is evidence. Mm-hmm. Everything that you've heard is evidence, and it all cuts against her. Evidence can be direct or circumstantial. Direct evidence is
right.
I see white boy. My 5-year-old son under his bed eating candy in the middle of the night. That's happened. Circumstantial evidence is I don't see it, but I find the candy wrappers the next morning. They weren't there the day before. And when I ask him about it, maybe he tells me a story about how it was actually his friend Misty or something like that. There is no legal difference in the weight that you may give to either direct or circumstantial evidence. It's all evidence, just the same. Now I'm going to start with the 204 trip as I go through the evidence. And
okay, 204.
Everybody knows
push pause.
About the dentist, going to Cheddar's, and picking up the kids.
Pause. So this is the case of Leilani Simon. If you hadn't been following, October 5th, 2022, the defendant, Leilani Simon, called and reported her 20-month-old son, Quentin, as missing. All right? It took the next 32 days for them to find baby Quentin's body in the local landfill. The state is alleging that Leilani Simon unalived her 20-month-old son. They had video camera footage about a dumpster with her going in the middle of the night and dumping something off. They got video, the red light camera that caught her license plate or whatever from the traffic light. And that's how they knew she had left out the house, because she had told a lie. She lied like several times before time, right? About where she was and what she had did. It was drug use. She was on cocaine, Percocets, marijuana that night. And then they had people just come in and talk about her character. So that's what the case was. Okay? So let's continue.
Everything. We don't need to start at 5:30 in the morning. We're going to start with the 204.
Yeah, 32 days later, they found his body in pieces in the dump.
State of mind that she was in when she did this. Now, she told them, and you heard her say why she went on this trip in the first place. What prompted And it was another argument with Danny about how he doesn't pay enough attention to her. The evidence is
Hey, Living.
that this
Closing my arguments, Living. Last night, the last night of this case.
She needs attention, specifically male attention. She needs it like you need oxygen. That is what is going on with her.
Mm-hmm.
They had some sort of argument. Yeah, I was frustrated. It wasn't like an argument. It was more like I don't understand why you don't push me type stuff. So once again, I was going to work this. Pretty much. And the only way I can make myself get away from that and try not to get 100% into that type of mindset was to take off further.
She told Bridget Brock the same thing.
You're leaving. I think you and Danny had an argument too at some point in time. It was because of lack of sexual tension that I was getting frustrated with. That's the whole reason why I left anyways and came up with the reason. Okay.
When she's not getting the attention, the amount and type of attention that she feels that she's entitled to, that she craves, that she needs, it makes her feel worthless, and it puts her in a really bad state of mind. And that's what was going on tonight. And of course, it's exacerbated by the tooth and all that stuff. So it tends.
So basically, hey, Renee. So basically, hey, Stump Down. So basically, you know, she is one of them type of women that was putting her need for attention from men in front of her kids. She had 3 kids by 3 different baby daddies, 3 kids under 3. The 2 oldest kids, one being the victim, and the one the older brother who was 3 years old. The mother, her mother, the kid's grandmother, actually had custody of those kids. And when she came back home with her boyfriend, pregnant with the 3rd baby, somehow, some way, the mama put them kids who was already outside of her custody back into her care. I will never understand that. But she never prioritized these babies. And they had showed at the beginning of this, at doing opening arguments, they had showed us a post to being suicide video she made where she spoke to her kids. Oh, I love you, mama love you, and this and that. She said that for all of 2 minutes, and then the next part was all about the boyfriend and all about, oh, you didn't love me and all da. It's very sickening. I'm going to let it play.
22, she opens this dining room door and she goes out to the Dodge Journey. That's the only door anybody really uses coming and going from this house. It takes you right into the dining room. You come right out of the driveway into the dining room. And she goes to the Circle K, and she's looking kind of rough. Her face is swollen. She's got a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. She's not in a good way. She's in a bad way. And she buys 2 Natural Light Tall Boys and 2 cigarillos. Now, the beer might have been for Danny. That seems to be how she gets out of the house without telling him where she's going, having her run and pick up some beer.
Not that's how she get out the house.
Those were for her and Craig. That's who she's looking for. All right, there's messages between them in arranging these prior meetups where he's asking her to pick up rolling paper.
Craig is a dope dealer.
He's talking about needing to find a room, I guess in his mom's house, I think is what he says, out on Arkwright Road.
Where she got a boyfriend.
Where they can smoke. Because what she and Craig are doing at this time, what they do is they get together, they smoke weed, they kick it, and they have sex. Right? That's what the evidence shows is what was going on between them. And she has been doing this a lot in the week plus leading up to this. These are all messages from her to Craig that are in evidence, and you can see them. September 25th, 2 in the morning, on the way. September 22nd, just after midnight. Okay, I'm passing Quaco now. September 28th, 10 p.m., on the way now. October 1st, 1 a.m., I'm about to head that way.
Hey, Tweety.
Just probably can only stay.
Damn, she was going over there. This not even a sneaky leak. This is like her whole entire other man. She going over there with this man to do all this like every day. Damn.
For a couple hours. These people are spending a lot of time together. October 2, about to drive over there, actually. October 2, that was in the morning. This is in the evening. About to head over there and grab his ass at 40 so he'll shut up. This is what I was talking about. The way she gets out of the house and goes over here, she tells Danny she's going to make a beer run. Now, it's not just about the
Well, thank you, Queen, by me, all means. Thank you for dropping down. Drop down more often. Thank you.
Attention and affection.
Hey, Candy Cane.
Again, it's like air to her. She has to have it. He's sending her messages like, this is in the context of her complaining about.
I appreciate that, Queen, by all means.
What she wants.
And I like the name.
Sending her messages such as, "Don't worry, it will be okay. I got your back." And she's replying, "I know you do, and I got yours all the way." This is what she needs. This is what she craves. And this is what she is looking for that night. The evidence essentially shows that Craig was like her emotional support drug dealer at the time. Okay?
Emotional support drug dealer. Ain't that some shit?
These are texts between her and Danny. Now, she had not told Danny that that's where she was going. She must have just mentioned the Circle K, the convenience store run. And the reason I say that is at 10:32, when she's leaving the Circle K, she tells Danny, "Gonna run to 204, I guess." He did not know.
204 is code word for a dope dealer.
Because he responds, "Oh, okay. Be safe, I guess, my queen." "I will be, and I'll be quick, I promise." And she had told him that before. He says, "I hope so." So now she's on the way out to see Craig. 10:36, the dining room door opens, and that's Paul getting home. Danny texts the defendant 2 minutes after that door activity. Paul showed up and is going to bed. Now, Paul told you that after he got something to eat and went upstairs, he was in the bedroom and pretty much out of play for the rest of the night. That's direct evidence. Danny told you the same thing. That's direct evidence. The defendant in her interviews said the same thing. That is direct evidence. And Paul's phone activity provides circumstantial evidence supporting this. There's this exchange between him and a coworker where the coworker asks Paul, "What time are you going in tomorrow?" And Paul responds with a 2-digit response, 12. That's at 11:40. He told you at this point I was laying in bed and either asleep or going to sleep. And the guy sends him 2 more messages and Paul doesn't respond. That short response and then the lack of any response to those 2 following messages is circumstantial evidence that what all 3 of them told you, that he was up in his room and out of play, is true. So that's what I mean when I say all this stuff is evidence, direct and circumstantial. You can look at this stuff and tell what happened. Back to Danny and the defendant's text messages with him.
Danny is her last baby daddy, her boyfriend who lived with her.
I'm about to turn on to 204.
Hey, Tamika McMillan, good evening.
Okay.
Welcome to the Day Jury
And
Box.
then you get this series of text messages. Now, again,
Closing
Danny
argument.
told you that he was asleep. Okay, he told you that he was asleep or close to it when she got back from 204. She said that in her early interviews when she was all in on the abduction between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. story, and it didn't occur to her that she might have to at some point throw Danny under the bus and pretend like he was awake. She said that he was asleep. And there's a series of, so that's direct evidence, those 2 things. Now there's a series of messages that provide circumstantial evidence in support of that, strong circumstantial evidence. The only way to read these messages is this is a dude who just wants to go to bed and is in the process of doing that. 10:44, he says, "Thank you for the little bit left, baby. So sweet, no lie." Now, he was straight up with you.
He talking about cocaine.
Reference to a very small amount of cocaine that she had left for him. He wasn't trying to hide anything from you. And he went to sleep not long after this. And you heard from Special Agent Snyder that drugs affect people in different ways. And cocaine, in his experience, cocaine does make some people energetic, some people sleepy, It kind of depends on the individual person's physiology. And so these messages go on with Danny just trying to get her home because all this guy wants to do is go to sleep because he's got to get up for work in the morning. And the fact that he does get up for work in the morning at 5:20 is further circumstantial evidence that he was asleep and out of play, was not involved in any way, and had no idea what she had done. 10:45, I love you. Please come back so we can crash together. 10:51, or not. 10:52, I guess I'm going to eat this food and try to stay up for a few. 10:56, I don't want to be tired or you to be tired either. Now, there are a couple, I've taken them out, there are a couple responses from her in here, but they're like one word, they're kind of like stiff arm type responses, like, leave me alone, I'm not really talking to you. 10:57, and I know you don't feel great, I don't know how you're still up. 11:01, moi. Now, what is this message? This is a good night kiss from Danny. This is Danny giving up on it and going to sleep. I guess I'm not waiting up. I'm crashing. You're doing whatever it is that you're doing. I'm going to bed. Now, what is different about this night than all the other nights involving Craig? Again, this is the guy that she's going to for the attention that she needs at a time where she's upset and in a bad state because of the tooth and because of Danny, and she wants to go there and get what she needs and craves. Unfortunately, Craig wasn't there. He told you that. It was unchallenged on cross-examination. I think Mr. Hooder just asked him to repeat that. You weren't there? All right. And that's why she's only there for 10 minutes. She was in a bad enough state this night that this was a pop-in. There were no setup text messages.
I don't know how I missed that testimony, y'all. My bad.
She just drove over there and tried to catch him when he wasn't there. So now she's going home. Hasn't gotten what she needed from Danny and hasn't gotten what she needed from Craig because Craig wasn't there. That was the point of the whole Craig thing, the messages and then putting them up, is just to establish that he wasn't there and he was not able to give her the male attention that she needed. It's not like a character assassination, like, hey, here's some salacious text, let's embarrass her. No, it's part of the story of that night. It helps tell the story of what happened. And so she has to settle for $80 worth of Coke and Percocet from Tim Weston, who also lives out there, of the same family.
Oh, she went to her secondary dope dealer. Okay.
She entered that dining room door at 11:13 p.m. You saw the GPS and everything. It all lines up with this. We don't need to look at that anymore. I think you all got it, the GPS stuff. This is like 15 minutes after Danny's last text to her. The dude is asleep or close to it. And so she's the only one who's up. And she's the only one that's agitated. And she's the only one that hates the kid, that hates Clinton. And she's the only one blowing coke all night and stewing about how unhappy she is and how she's a victim and everybody's.
Hey, that's on Court TV. I'm streaming this off of Court TV direct. I don't know what happened to that audio, or is it just me? Drop a one if y'all can hear that. I think it's just me. No, y'all dropping the two. That means y'all can't hear it either. Me either. Let me see.
What she is looking tired. You to be tired. Hasn't gotten what she needed.
I don't know what happened. Let me see.
One who's up. And she's the only
one.
Okay,
it did go mute. Okay.
And she's the only one. She's the only one that hates the kid.
I rewound it a little bit.
Hates Clinton. And she's the only one.
Let's see if we do it again.
and stewing about how unhappy she is and how she's a victim.
Well, I rewinded it, and it did it again in the same place. So maybe it's gonna clear up because I'm doing this straight from court TV right now, so it's not me on my side. It is common for a mother to have resentment or even anger towards her child because of the father or another reason. And that is very true. Y'all can hear it. I can't hear nothing. I'm going to leave it alone. I can't hear shit. I'm going to leave it alone. I can't hear nothing. Yeah, my earphones hooked up. No, I can see y'all comments, but I can't hear anything. Like y'all can hear her talk. I can't. It'll come back on. Okay.
If
There
it's
you
been
go.
a good day, it might take me a little longer to flip out. But if it's been a bad or stressful day, it can happen like that. Well, this was a bad or stressful day. She had her tooth pulled. She says a million times that she was in pain and couldn't sleep. And so this would be one of these days.
Oh no, the comments on point.
This is evidence. Another circumstance is that baseline behavioral anger problem, propensity to snap, is exacerbated by the drug use.
So just before we left, they would take the trash to where you were at. You were on cocaine. It was
Perks, coke, weed.
That's a lot of drugs.
Unhappiness, physical pain, discomfort from the tooth. These are the circumstances.
I become angry and impulsive when I'm like,
That's her talking about cocaine. So this is where she was at in that period of time where she's all alone, stewing in her own unhappiness. She says it herself. I was in a lot of high emotion and a lot of pain. And so it's under those circumstances that for reasons known only to her, that she does the unspeakable. All right. The judge will tell you that one of the things we don't have to prove is motive.
Don't have to prove motive.
Is that, man, it's really hard to figure out why people do things sometimes. People do stuff that after the fact doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and that they probably wish they hadn't done. So we don't have to prove motive. But it's under these circumstances that she does something unspeakable. And it's literally unspeakable. And that is why she could not bring herself to admit it or tell the truth about it. Because it is an unspeakable thing for a mother to kill her child. But we know she did it in part because everything she does afterwards. Her flashlight is on for 20 seconds at 1 and 2 a.m. And that's because she's creeping around the house. This long route that you have to go to get out this living room door. It's the only time anybody ever uses the living room door. That's her taking Quentin's body out to his car. And she's using that door because it's the furthest one away from Danny, less likely to wake him up and have him say, hey, where are you going? And what is that you're holding in your arms? So she goes out and she puts Quentin in the She goes back in and out a couple times at 107 and 110. She's going to want to get some shoes on, get her wallet, because she's very careful about not getting stopped by the police and not drawing any attention to herself on this trip. That brings us to the second trip, the Azalea trip.
It's the Azalea mobile homes where she dumped the body.
Eventually
allegedly.
say, when they kind of pinned her down and said, look, we found Quentin now, so we know that you put him in the dumpster because we know where the dumpster went and all that. She would eventually claim, look, I was just so messed up, I don't remember anything. Totally ridiculous claim, especially when you look at what she was able to do and how she was operating that night. It was all very calculated, all right? At least the aftermath, right? 1:13, she plugs her phone into the
Hey, Teamy, good evening. Thank you for joining the Leilani Jury Box.
At some point in
Closing
here, she
arguments.
drafts a text message to Danny saying, getting some Orajel. Right, the cover-up starts right away. Getting some Orajel. Now, that message is never sent. That's probably because she made the calculation that, look, that's more likely to make his phone ding and wake him up and draw more attention. I just won't send it, and I'll bank on the fact that I can get out and back without him ever waking up, which is what happened. Unfortunately for her, they were able to find this in her phone. So she knows what she is doing. This is calculated. She turns from Buckhalter onto Ogeechee Road. Hopefully this video will cooperate. This is one we're having a little bit of a problem with. She's coming to a complete stop. She's using her blinker. That's how you want to drive when you have your dead child in the car and you're going to throw him away. You don't want to get stopped for rolling through a stop sign or failing a signal. That's what's going on here. So when she tells you, I just don't remember, don't believe her. Don't believe her. This is that camera that's oriented at the dumpsters, and you can see the headlights up in the top corner. Right, just the top center. Now, I've left this whole video in here. I don't know whether I'll play the entire thing, but the reason I left it in here is because it's long. It's like 2 minutes that she sits at that dumpster. You don't need 2 minutes to throw
Shut you behind, girl.
a story that was always ridiculous and totally transparent. She is sitting there thinking about whether she's really going to do this. Because once you put them in there and you drive off, you can't take them back. That Waste Pro truck is coming, and you made your decision.
I think that's the car headlights
2
in front of that cat tractor thing.
To think
Her
about
coming
whether
up
she
on a
really
mobile
wants to
home.
throw Quentin, her son, in the garbage, such that he gets crushed into pieces by the compactor in the garbage truck and ground into pieces at the landfill. She thought about it. She thought about it. And she chose to do it. And there was that bit in her October 12th interview with Special Agent Snyder that was so telling. She's given this ridiculous story about throwing away the trash. And he puts in front of her a picture of that camera on the trailer right across from the dumpsters that points at the dumpsters. And he asked her, what are we going to see when we pull the footage from this camera? Now, unfortunately, that camera didn't work, despite the best efforts of everybody at Chatham County Police Department, the local FBI office, and the digital forensics analysis unit at Quantico. It just didn't have footage from this time period. It was an interior camera that was not ruggedized for the elements in the technical language of Sergeant Coleman. But she doesn't know that. And so she thinks that what she did there was caught on camera. And it's a rare moment of truth because Special Agent Snyder asked her, what are we going to see when we look at that footage? What are we going to see you do? And she tells him, you're going to see me open up the trash, look at it, close it up, and put it in the dumpster. Tie it up and put it in the dumpster. And he asks her, it's a sensible question, why? If you're just throwing away old smelly food, why do you need to look at it? She doesn't really have an answer. What she was doing,
that's what I was wondering.
was looking into the face of her dead son.
She was saying goodbye.
Quentin, one last time, and making a conscious decision to tie him up and throw him away like a piece of trash.
Yep.
That's what that means. So think about that. Think about that, what that would have looked like in that moment, in that bag. It's easy for these things to become abstract.
That's like a last opportunity right in there to do something different. Even if she obviously had hurt that baby, right? At that moment, she could have made the next right decision. Let me just go ahead and confess what happened. Let me bury my baby right. Not try to hide it. Not throw his body in the dumpster. But she didn't make that decision.
The Azalea trip,
Very sad.
the original story. But think about that. That is a real live child. Well, not anymore. That is a real child in a trash bag being thrown away. Then she eventually pulls off. When she does that, she commits the offense of concealing the death of another. That's count 4 in the indictment. You conceal the death of another when you unlawfully conceal someone's death in a way that hinders the discovery of whether they were unlawfully killed. And I would say it did hinder the discovery of whether he was unlawfully killed. It took them weeks to find him. And really the only reason to do that is if you unlawfully kill him. I mean, that is a hell of a thing to do. That is a hell of a thing to do. And the only reason to do it is if you have to do it to try to get out of a murder charge. As she pulls out, still driving carefully, coming to a complete stop. Putting on her turn signal. Anybody who's ever gone out to dinner and had 2 drinks and driven home and just didn't want to take any chances knows exactly what she's doing driving like this. Trying to avoid any attention. The next day, she would talk about a couple times. Once in this interview that you watched, and according to the testimony of Detective Lemons, once when they were outside smoking a cigarette. She talked twice about the importance of the first 24 hours of a missing persons investigation.
Nobody knows it by the time it hits tomorrow morning. You're already past the time when you're most likely to find a missing person. It'll be past. After that, you're less likely, right? After the first 24 hours.
Now, why is she?
I have to tell y'all, if you can't tell that this girl was tweaking and geeking, this is not just, in my opinion, this is not just emotion. This is not just, what's the word? This is tweaking and geeking, okay? All her body movements, all that kind of stuff, all that scream, dope. 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 That fidgety, that moving and shit, that has nothing to do with her baby coming up missing. All that have to do, even with the way she grit her teeth. That's dope. What's up, Dr. Indigo Podcast RN? Damn, you got a whole lot of names, girls, and titles. You a podcast, you a doctor, and a RN? Girl. Tiki say it's bad acting. Okay? Horrible.
Bring that up twice.
Well, I'm a professional body analyst, okay?
She's posing it as
Body language analyst, so I get it.
About that if they don't find it quickly, that he'll never be found at all. What is going on here is it's exactly the opposite of this. This is not a fear of hers. This is her hope. All right. She might be calculating. She might be manipulative, but she's not necessarily that smart. Okay. She does not understand that when a child goes missing, they pull out all the stops. She seriously underestimated and did not understand the capabilities of people like the Chatham County Police Department.
Let me say this for you guys who may not remember. From the time she called her baby in missing until after they find the baby's body in the landfill, which was 32 days later, she never once went on the news and said, help me find my baby. If you seen my baby, we missing my baby. I love you. Please come home. She never even did that. And she had a 20-month-old missing baby. She never made the public outcry for help to find her baby. The only time she did that was 33 days after him coming up reported missing and after they found the baby body.
And Detective Lemons. Agencies like the FBI, Special Agent Snyder, Special Agent Solomon, Special Agent Burns, Detective Noble, Jenny Cox. She didn't understand the commitment of people like Officer Zerke to be out there every day looking for Quentin. She did not understand that all of these people were going to care about Quentin.
Right. She didn't even pretend.
More than she did. By 1:26 in the morning, she's home and she's unplugging her phone. She's going in that dining room door. 1:39, she goes out again. And then there was this, her phone being unlocked from 1:47 to 2:01, a little less than 15 minutes. The Special Agent, I asked Special Agent first, could you tell what she was doing on her phone at that point? And he said, gosh, I can't say for sure, but it looked like she was scrolling Facebook based on my training and experience, and he's got a lot. She's sitting there on Facebook trying to calm herself down and level out a little bit after doing this thing so that she can go to sleep and pretend like everything's normal and further to cover up in the morning. 2:01, dining room door opens again. 2:04, it opens. 2:36, it closes.
She going in and out smoking.
She says that that's because she was still frantically
and she's smoking.
Lines,
hey, Louise, welcome to the Leilani Jury Box.
Coming back in,
smoking.
Line, repeat the cycle.
And so you're doing the evidence while the back door is opening and shutting.
Somewhere in there, she decides that she needs to go in the kitchen pantry or her closet or wherever she was keeping it and grab this rice cereal and spread it around in the car as part of the cover-up. Some kind of half-baked effort to absorb odor or something like that, throw off the canines or whatever. Like I said, calculated, manipulative, not necessarily smart. She said about this stuff that it had exploded in her car more than a month before.
Wait a minute, I missed that. Hold on. I gotta see why she's making them faces. Hold on, let me see. I missed it. I had to go get me some water. I was choking.
She decides that she needs to go in the kitchen pantry or her closet or wherever she. Hi,
character. Welcome to the Leilani Jury Box.
Cereal and spread it around in the car as part of the cover-up. Some kind of half-baked effort to absorb odor or something like that, throw off the canines or whatever. Like I said,
okay, Indigo.
Manipulative, not necessarily smart. She said about this stuff that it had exploded in her car more than a month before, and she had cleaned it up, and she had taken it into the house. I'm sorry, but there is no reason for that stuff to be out on the tiki bar when police show up in the morning, unless she was spreading it around in the car, either in the middle of the night or in the morning before the police got there.
Yeah, thinking
That's what we call a clue.
that's what her high coked up Percocet, but thought that by putting that stuff down, it was gonna erase the smell of a dead body. Okay, not to be just blunt and cold hearted, but in her mind, her drugged out mind, she thought that infamil and stuff was gonna like kill whatever odor might be up in them. How could she say that stuff had exploded a month before time? She cleaned it out, and it was all over that car like that. Child, boom.
She knows
That's
what
some
she did.
drugs. That's
She knew
drugs.
what she did at the time, and she was trying to cover it up. 5:20, Danny gets up and texts the babysitter, "Hey, the kids are going to stay here with her today, Miss Michelle." Now, there was some effort made in trial to make this look like shady or nefarious on the part of Danny. And sometimes you have a fact like that where initially when you hear it, he texts the babysitter that they're going to stay here. That's maybe a little weird. But then you just ask him, and you get a totally sensible, reasonable answer, which is that he was just sick of her shit. Okay, to put it candidly, he was just sick of it.
Now he was just sick of her shit.
Night, doing drugs, not waking up, and running around, not waking up to go to work, and wanting to spend money on a babysitter. That's all this is.
He was sick of
And
her
it couldn't have
shit.
been that abnormal because Michelle's response is not, well, Daniel, this is highly out of the ordinary. There's something going on. And she just says, okay. And he takes this route to work, the most direct route, the quickest route, that does not go by a Azalea Mobile Home Closet. That's the testimony you heard, and we looked at the zoom in and all that stuff. She eventually wakes up, and now it's time to launch the story. At 9:14, she calls Danny and gives her the whole front door was open, and he's not in his playpen, the abduction story. Danny gets this phone call and runs out of work. He does not know what is going on. He has no idea what she has done.
He definitely took off running.
And his boss, Dave, corroborated this, that Danny left his North Face jacket and cigarettes there. He would not, you saw Danny. He's a nice enough guy, I guess, but he's not sophisticated enough to know he was involved in this, that he needs to begin acting before he's ever like home talking to the police. It just would not occur to a guy if he's somehow involved and is trying to disguise that, to start acting at work before he ever even gets home. He runs out like this because he.
So that's the last baby daddy. She had a newborn, like a couple of months old little girl for him, Danny, who lived with her. And so all through the trial, the defense team, the defense attorneys, we talked about it last night. Hey, Lady Steph, that was definitely, he broke out into a sprint. But we discussed that last night, the little ain't jury box, and we was of the same thinking that the defense attorneys was definitely doing their best job and their best effort to keep open reasonable doubt. And the only way they seemed like they could push reasonable doubt was to cast a shadow of suspicion on Danny. And they kept trying to put stuff on Danny. Child, I'm distracted. I can hear my son up in there rapping, and he up in there rapping hard as can be, okay? It sounds so funny. Not that he's not sophisticated enough, okay? Lady Steph, I ain't gonna even say you late, girl, because I know you've been in the cloud cooking or painting your toes, girl.
Believes what she is saying.
I know.
He believes what she is saying. He certainly wants to, he doesn't want to believe that she did anything. So he believes it. That jacket was important to him. He was talking about it. He mentioned the brand twice. It's my North Face jacket. It's an expensive jacket. He would not have left this thing there with his cigarettes in it, unless this is an organic reaction, a real reaction, a genuine reaction to something that he believed. He doesn't even clock out. Dave Mullins told you that this little triangle up here means that somebody had to manually clock him out. And Dave also told you that he saw him in the parking lot and he was visibly crying. That is real. All of this. Danny told you that he didn't know. That's direct evidence. This is all circumstantial evidence that strongly supports that. There is no reason not to believe him when he says that.
I believed everything Danny said.
6 or 8 minutes into that phone call, I think it's 8, she opens the front door. I told you you were going to see this in the opening statement, and you did. She's on the phone with him saying, the front door was open and Quentin's gone. Meanwhile, she's opening the door and staging the scene. And she wanted to say in those interviews, well, the front door sensor's not working. You know, how do we know? How do we know that that data is reliable? Well, again, the police work in this case is phenomenal. Detective Noble told you he sat down with those records that he got from ADT, and he pulled up the body-worn camera footage of the police officers that responded to the scene, and he looked at the timestamps on the body-worn camera to see when they were opening the door and seeing how.
Thank you, Lady Steph. That's why I say I know you've been here.
And he cross-checks those timestamps in the ADT records. That's evidence. That door sensor was working, and this is exactly what it looks like. This is part of the cover-up. She should have opened the damn door before she called him. Finally, at 9:39, she called.
I don't know why this attorney is doing all this just random cursing. He said that the boy was just tired of that shit, and now he talking about she should have just closed the damn door before she called the police. I don't know if he tired or exasperated, but he is really doing a lot of willy-nilly cursing in this courthouse, okay? A lot.
Calls 911. Now, she doesn't want
It's weird.
Police attention. She's trying to run out a 24-hour clock. That's how she thinks this works. If they don't find him in 24 hours, and pretty much got him away with it.
Hey, Donna Harris. Good evening. Welcome to the Leilani Jury Box.
She only calls the police because Michelle comes.
Make sure y'all hit the like.
You really need to call the police. Your child is gone. And that's when we get into what has a heading in the indictment of the falsehoods on October 5. Now, I typed out this indictment.
Oh, that's good, Lady
Falsehoods in there because an indictment.
That's good, Lady Steph. Little Lane Jury Box on fire. Lady Steph says he trying to make an emphasis for the jury. Really trying to drive this thing home to make them angry too. Hey, Dama Forever, you're late. Mm-hmm. Lou A said, and has the nerve to talk about Danny not being sophisticated. Meanwhile, he is acting a whole donkey in court. Okay, but I'm kind of thinking because he has been so professional that maybe I think Lady Steph kind of has a point right here. I think he's doing extra in his closing to try to drive up emotion. You know what I'm saying? He's just tired of this shit. She should have just she should have opened the damn door or whatever he just said. I think that is to kind of rile up and catch their attention, you know? No, Billy Joe, the grandmother, she never did testify. She didn't testify.
At the time of indictment, nothing's been proven.
Mm-mm.
And falsehoods sounds a little softer maybe than lies. I'm going to go ahead and call these things lies now.
Welcome to the Little Lane Jury Box, Diamond. Better late than never.
The lies on October 5th. Count 5, false report of a crime. She committed this offense by implying that Quentin Simon had been abducted by an unknown intruder. Now, initially, it was just an implication.
I woke up about 10 o'clock and had to look for the first 6. So between 3-hour period, somehow the front door is unlocked and the sun is not in his sleeping.
She would go on a little later that day to state this a little more directly.
Accident. There was no somebody falling. There was no horse playing. There was no door being
Hey, Simply.
Child walked outside. There was none of that. None of it at all. The whatever happened, somebody picked that baby up out of that playpen and they took him with them. That's what they did. There's no way he can get out of that playpen on his own. No way.
All that lying like
Of
that.
course, there's the whole deal with her
That's a
telling
damn
Detective
shame.
Wilkins that she went to bed at 12 and woke up at 9. So this thing starts falling apart almost immediately.
So
That's
when's the last time
ridiculous.
you saw your child? When I went to bed last night. And what time was that? Do you remember? Around 12. 12?
You wasn't even at home at
I
12.
was in deep room yesterday. I'm sorry, that's it. I went to bed her.
This is where I told y'all from the very beginning, they caught her in a lot of lies. At first, she never did even say that she left out the house. She tried to make it seem like she had been in the house all night long. They caught her in so many lies from the beginning. And then she told the cops she woke up at 6 o'clock that morning, saw the baby wasn't there, but she didn't call the police until after 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm starting to get angry. Let's go.
I get you. Listen, I have it up too. So I got up this morning about 9.
Detective Robbins sees the car on the flock camera hitting previous night, relays that to Lieutenant Foster, and Lieutenant Foster goes and gets the first version of the Origel story.
Okay, so where'd you go? Right there, that Chevron. My friend that used to work with, she got ordered up there, her next day went home.
You know, as one does, leave your house at 1 in the morning to get a topical oral anesthetic from your friend. And Danny, of course, is looking at her like, what is this woman talking about? I've been home from work for about 3 hours now, maybe 2.5, and I've never heard a word about this. So then they go to headquarters, and she continues the lies of October 5th. Count 6, making a false statement by saying that the purpose of the 204 trip was to pay an existing drug debt, paying off a $20 weed front. We're looking at an $80 cash app, and she later admits that it was for Percocet and cocaine.
And at that point, you didn't get anything. No, I just paid him $20. I gave him $20 and I left him. It was referred from a couple days ago.
Each one of these lies, on each one of these days, is a separate crime. Count 7, making a false statement for saying that the only controlled substance of which she was a regular user was
Baby, they
marijuana.
held all these charges against
You
her.
remember this
I think it's 16
flowery
charges.
lie that turned out to be totally untrue, like in a big way.
Like anything, anybody got worried about anything that really stopped me? Because I was asleep. I'll be honest about that. Everything else, no. My mom was very good. I watched her be. Because, I was covered with fish. So I said, no. Anything that's not homegrown or bought at a convenience store, I don't want it. When I mean homegrown, I don't mean cooked up stove. I mean on my shirt. When they're homegrown, it's grown. Not created.
Count 8, false statement for saying that the only controlled substance she had used in the past 24 hours was marijuana.
No, I did not. I did not take a Percocet right now. I'm gonna piss in the cup for you right now.
And then the big one, right? The big one is what she was doing at Azalea after.
This is not here yet. Lou said, what is the prosecution saying her motive? Do you agree? They not giving the motive. I think personally, I think that the baby was making noise. I think the baby woke up and was blowing her high. I think the baby was waking up and she, the baby could have woke up when she was walking up in there after trying to make a booty call and out the house at 2 o'clock in the goddamn morning, and she didn't want the baby to wake up Danny and everybody else. I think the baby woke up, she high and geeked up, and I think she hit that baby, or she she hit that baby, or pushed him and made him hit his head against the wall, or she did something to injure that baby dramatically, and then tried to hide it by hiding his body. But the prosecution just said, I think like a little bit before you came in, that they don't have to prove a motive. And so they actually mentioned not having a direct motive in the closing arguments. She didn't like the father. Exactly. She never liked that child. Right. We listened to that testimony from last night from the two babysitters, and she was letting the babysitters keep that baby like weeks at a time. She had pushed the baby in a damn pool without no floaties on, you know. Now I'm gonna let it play out, y'all. I'm gonna still give my commentary. I can't help myself, but I'm gonna try to let it play a little bit because we got a lot to go for this. For the closing statements, and then the verdict is like 10 minutes.
Making a false statement.
They charged her with all these counts and held every count.
And had obtained origin from her.
No problem, Lou.
From her.
My mouth was really bothering me about almost 1 in the morning.
Exactly, Donna.
Fantasy they have orange gel. No. So I had contact with another one of my friends named Misty that I used to work with. He has a lot of mouth problems, and asked her if she had any origin. I met her up there at the Chevron. They called her and got back and back home. Y'all, so 12 minutes.
In this lie is for the purpose of committing the offense charged in count 10, false statement by concealing a material fact. Most material fact in the case. That on that trip, she had in fact traveled to Azalea Mobile Home Plaza and there had discarded her son, Quentin Simon, in a dumpster. October 8th, with Bridget Brock.
That's little Quentin Simon, 20-month-old victim. That's Quentin.
Again, stating that the purpose of the 204 trip was to pay an existing drug debt. Now, I told you in an opening statement that the evidence would show that she just had not had enough time to adjust to the new information of Misty saying I didn't see her and the cameras saying we did. So her only choice at this point, because they confront her with this like during this interview, is just to double down on it.
Left about 10:30 to 2.
Really cute, some big old brown eyes.
Okay. And we paid $20. Bread. And what for? For wheat. For wheat. Okay.
Count 12, false statement for concealing a material fact. The point of that lie was to conceal the fact that she had used controlled substances, that she was in a lot of high emotion and a lot of pain and using cocaine, Percocet, and weed. And again, that's because that circumstance contributed so directly to what she did to Quentin. Count 13, false statement for again stating that the purpose of the Azalea trip was to meet Misty, which again is not even her real name, to obtain Origel.
Let's talk about that, okay? Because Misty had talked to you.
She was calling her alibi Misty, and the girl name was Miss C.
She did not have a conversation with you about Origel. Yes. So in your mind, you looked at all these timestamps, and possibly you came up with a story that's partly true. No, that is. But there's very, very big missing pieces, right? And in your story, you haven't been completely honest about where you were at and why you were there. I was 100% honest about where I was at. I showed the life 360, and I told them I even gave them the order that she gave me. Right, and that didn't happen. We've already interviewed this. I got the order that did happen. She said that moment inside her mouth, that's the reason why I asked her for it. You have to stop.
Good idea, Diamond. Yes, I will. Yes, I will. After the opening statements.
And again, the purpose of that.
You remember, Lady T?
What she was doing.
When they were showing the crime scene photos or the pictures, they had a big thing of Ambisol, the same thing like Origel, old school Origel, in their bathroom cabinet. And they literally just took a picture. Boop. Ambisol right there. And she said she got up in the middle of the night to go get Origel. Girl, boo.
And we've talked about what that was. October 12th, making a false statement by again saying that what she had done in Azalea was meet Misty for origin. And by now the location has changed. It was the Chevron. Now it's, okay, you got me on the cameras at Azalea? All right, fine, I met her at Azalea.
And I did, I did meet Misty.
So it may have been an Azalea, not the Chevron, but I did meet her 100%.
So you went to Missy's house, and did you go inside her house? She was just standing outside. Yeah, that's fine. Like how long did y'all interact there? Missy home, you were like 2 minutes. It was a quick little conversation. I doing her mouth.
Welcome to the Little Ain't Jury Box, Sassy Francis, Sassy Friend. Good evening.
A few minutes later,
Thank you for that. I promise you, I kept looking at that saying, is that right? Let me fix that. Thank you.
Did you get any work last night? I did get work last night. I found it, and the card was one of the ones that I lost. And I thought I might get back to the house.
so like 30 minutes, maybe 20 minutes after I did meet Misty 100%. Right, I didn't speak to her, but, you know, that's why I went there.
I swear I kept looking at that E-light.
Count 16, false statement. For saying that all she had discarded.
You remember 2 Miss Step 219? Okay. Thank you for the cash app.
Dead body, Quentin's little body, the stinky shrimp pasta. Which is just disgusting. I mean, if you think about it, it's just disgusting. What a disgusting thing to say.
We did just about to come to trash. Yeah, I did the trash. Just standing to take trash off a few days ago, and there's spoiled food in my car. And so when I pulled around, I said, yeah, I stopped the food in the trash.
Nope, never asked for an attorney.
It was like shrimp pasta. Shrimp pasta? Yeah. The whole car smelled like shrimp. You know, I had to wait. Yeah, I was standing there. I was like, what is that smell? I thought that before. I didn't like to go to a floor. You know, I didn't know that before. And I'm like, get out of the car. And I was like,
I think this was the FBI office. I think that was the FBI office because the FBI got involved real quick.
I didn't think anything of, to be honest. It's just, oh, man, I'm for the car. See an opportunity after the car.
Just didn't think about it. That's why I didn't mention it over the previous, 5-6 hours of interviews. I didn't think anything of it.
Very guilty, Miss Steph 219. And remember, they showed the picture of them big old 3 garbage cans, city garbage cans they had at our house that wasn't even full.
And she had discarded her son, Quentin Simon, in a dumpster, like a piece of trash. October 31st, time to try something new. Danny's left town by this point. Who wouldn't?
Danny gone.
Was characterized as some sort of suspicious
Danny recorded with the FBI and skipped town.
No connection to Savannah, other than her. The relationship was already falling apart. This is a difficult woman to live with and to be in a relationship with. And by this, you know, now he knows that she's killed her child. It doesn't take him that long to figure that out, even if he didn't want to believe it initially. So he goes home to his parents' house. Who wouldn't? All right, so now, by the time October 31st rolls around, hey, Danny's gone, screw Danny, I'll put it on him. And that starts with that text message to Special Agent Solomon on October 24th, and then that's made official in this October 31 interview. I'll tell you something about this count right now. It says that she made this statement to Detective Lemons, Special Agent Solomon, and Special Agent Snyder. I think the only one who testified about being a part of this interview was maybe Lemons and Solomon.
I'll be right back.
When we have people like that joined with and in the indictment, we say she made this false statement to all three of these people. Even if the evidence only shows that it was made to one, like only one person testified of the three that they were the recipient of the statement, you can and should still convict on that count. Even if if you look at it, it's like, well, that person didn't say they were there for it. You can still convict on that count. You should still convict on that count, because even if you were to omit the other person from the count, it's still a lie. It's still a count. So sometimes we charge things with the word and between them, but you should read it as or. You can read it as or. We do it that way for technical legal reasons that I won't get into. We have to charge it with and, so we put them on notice of anybody that we might prove the count as to. But you can read the and in there as or, and you should read it as or. And I think I saw somebody write that down.
I'm back. I'm going through this water like
Another thing about like technical aspects of charges, these charges have Special Agent Brad Snyder as Bradford. That's his full first name. I don't know that came out on the witness stand. Little things like that do not require you, do not prevent you from convicting on a charge. A little thing like the person's name, first name, whether it's Brad or Bradford, is not a material allegation in the charge. So little things. I mean, if it said somebody else entirely, if it said it was actually Joe Smith, and that guy never testifies, that's a problem. But if he said on the stand that his name is Brad and the indictment says Bradford, you don't need to get wrapped around the axle on that. So anyway, she makes this false statement.
just like her.
Daniel Youngkin, who drove.
That baby looked just like his mama. I love his big old brown eyes. They so big. With that little long haircut, he was cute.
Now, that doesn't make sense for 100 reasons. One being that she'd already admitted to making that trip and given a false alibi for it, with a false explanation for it, like 15 times. And later, in her last interview on November 21, she would once again admit to it. But here's something even a little more probably direct than that. That same day that she comes in and says that to them, that it was actually Danny, she has this call with Danny, because he's still like entertaining phone calls and things, even if they're not really together. And he asks her, "Where did you go when you left the house?" And she says, "Like I said, I went to get Laura Jo." She doesn't say, "What are you talking about, dummy? That was you. Remember, I was supposed to lie for you." She just once again admits on the same day that she's telling law enforcement that it wasn't her. She's admitting to Danny at a time where
that's what I was telling y'all. She tried to blame Danny.
That it wasn't.
Thank you for the cash app. I appreciate that.
So what did you do?
Thank you.
When you went out after I fell asleep? I didn't sleep so long.
That call is just not gonna. That call is just not going to sound like that. Therefore, October 31st statement is true. One, Danny's not going to be asking her, "What did you do?" And two, she's not going to be answering that question. She's going to be disputing the premise of it. So let's talk a little bit more about Danny.
I appreciate the love.
Some reasons that you can look at the circumstantial evidence in this case and the direct evidence of his testimony and her statements to know that. But there's some other things. She is telling him the same, throughout this thing, she's telling him the same lies that she's telling the police. And she's lying to him about what the FBI and police are telling her.
Yeah, he finna show that FBI footage, right? This, for you guys who wasn't here on this part, the boyfriend Danny, like the next day after calling in, like the baby got reported missing on the 5th. By the 7th, Danny, her boyfriend, had already agreed to work with the FBI. Danny had already agreed, and they bugged the hotel room. They finna play that video.
So you went and met this? Yes. And they try to say again, I asked him to show me a picture of this girl. Did y'all speak to that called Lane? Did you speak to her? Did you speak to her husband? It's the outright. You know, and they said her husband. Why didn't you speak to her?
Nobody ever told her that they had only spoken to Misty's husband. She's lying to them, just like she lied to everybody throughout this case. And if he knew anything or had anything to do with it, their interactions in the hotel room just would not look like this. She would not have to lie to him. She would only have to lie to the police, to the FBI. Like a half hour later, she tells a different lie. The first one was, hey, they told me that they only spoke to her husband. And now she says, yeah, my impression was that they talked to her and she corroborated my story.
He went and met Missy. And you said it. I think so, yes. What did she say? And she confirmed it. She confirmed it? I'm pretty sure, yes. It's not like I told you what was said. Oh, but they said that they spoke to Missy and they didn't touch me no more about the ordeal. Oh, okay.
This is the day of that interview with Bridget Brock. They said that they talked to Misty and then they didn't question me anymore about the ordeal. That is not an accurate characterization of that interview at all. She's lying to him just like she's lying to the police and FBI. This guy didn't know anything. He didn't have anything to do with it. You heard from him directly. And one of the things the judge is going to instruct you on is how to evaluate the credibility of witnesses. And it's got a number of factors, this instruction, things for you to consider. The most important as they apply to Danny are his manner of testifying and his personal credibility as you observe. We would submit to you that he came in here and was just an open book, a guy doing his level best to tell you the truth. And there's some things about his manner of testifying that give that impression. One is
he cried a couple of
he's
times.
Not hiding anything. He's not covering anything up. I asked him, and this was not like rehearsed or anything. I asked him about the alcohol in the car and whether he would ever drink and drive. And he's on the stand under oath, essentially admitting to a crime. Yeah, unfortunately, at that point in time, I would do that sometimes. Mr. Hilliard on cross-examination asked him some question to the effect of, you tried to say you were the responsible person in the home. And he corrects Mr. Hilliard. Whoa. I never said I was responsible. He's taken ownership of his role in creating a certain environment in that house and certain behaviors. But he did not have anything to do with this. And he did not know anything about it. And it's kind of a shame what has happened to him, the effort that was made by her during the investigation for like a minute there to try to throw it on him. And some of the insinuations about him that have been made during this trial, and that might be made again in the defense closing argument. But you can assess Danny's credibility and consider the fact that he's corroborated by all of the circumstantial evidence.
And let's not forget.
One of
let's not
circumstance is that.
Let's not forget, by all accounts, everybody who didn't testify who knew them, Danny, the boyfriend, was the primary caretaker of these kids. She was not taking care and attending to their children. He bathed them. He cooked for them. He played with them. He washed them every night when she was running up and down the goddamn street to the dope dealer. He took them to the daycare. He picked them up. And only one of them babies was his baby. You know what I'm saying? He was absolutely credible. You know, he wasn't perfect, but I don't think he did nothing to that baby.
He was talking for like 2 months or so on a regular basis with 2 very experienced and savvy FBI agents, Special Agent Snyder and Special Agent Solomon. These people know what they're doing. Like Special Agent Snyder said, what the FBI has all these sophisticated techniques and resources and all that stuff. They love that word, resources. But at their core, what do? They talk to people. They talk to people. And they had extensive, it's not just his demeanor in the interviews. You know, I asked those questions, what was his demeanor like in the interviews? And it occurs to me, having heard all the evidence, that I think I might have been missing the point a little bit, and that's a little too narrow. It's everything that he did and said over like 2 or 3 months that convinced them at every turn that he had nothing to do with this and no knowledge of it. He is not capable of pulling that off if it's not true. He is not capable of conning Special Agent Snyder and Special Agent Solomon. He ain't that guy. Probably nobody is. And that brings us to the day of arrest, lies on November 21. After giving all of these detailed stories and changing the details, whenever that
Maybe they still going through all the charges.
the bag, how exactly she threw it in, the exact amount, the color of the ties on the bag, all that stuff. Now, it's I just don't remember at all. I don't remember anything from when I got home from 204 and saw Quentin safe in the crib to when I was driving home from Azalea and hit the railroad tracks and jerked back into, I don't know, forming memories, I guess. Just totally absurd. Totally contrary to all these detailed cover stories she'd given to that point. And contradicted even in this interview.
I wonder if they have a time limit. Does anybody know? Do they have time limits?
Detective Lemons asked her, was Quentin in the trash bag? And she says, well, there were actually 2 trash bags, which is a new fact. Yet another change. Even on the final day, she's still changing things. And then Detective Lemons says, is that what Quentin was in? Or did you use a bag to dispose of Quentin? She says, I don't remember grabbing a bag. I was focused on throwing away the trash. So there's 2 things going on here. One is that she is admitting that she remembers what she did with Azalea. It was like 30 minutes after she said, yeah, I just have no memory. And she's now describing details again. And 2, she's more or less admitting.
Let's look at Leilani's face. When she shows emotion, she shows emotion of like pissivity, like she got an attitude. Not crying, not sadness, not I miss my baby even. Let's not say sadness from guilt. Let's just say we sit here talking about my deceased baby. My baby who, if I'm innocent, I didn't have nothing to do with my baby being unalived. And here I am sitting in this court, have to hear all of this about my deceased child. Does this look like the expression of somebody who grieving their baby? I don't care if it's 2 years later. Judge Stephanie Boyd gives a limit, but she typically will ask them how long they will need. Right. That's what I'm saying, because he was checking his watch. That's why I was wondering. She looks annoyed. Right. That's the only kind of emotion she really gave, but like she was pissed off and how dare somebody say something about her, you know? Yes, like why is she here? Like she should be somewhere else. Donna say true. She keeps rolling her eyes and she looks slow. Right. And remember, if you saw that video in the hotel, that's when she was doing that dope, and she was significantly smaller. Lou A says, "Damn, he keeps degrading Danny to bring home his point. He is not capable enough. What's next? Danny is intellectually disabled and unable to think past, present, comprehend, and he for Danny. Wait until the defense go. Lady Steph say she doesn't hear anything that man is saying. She is sitting up there thinking about Danny. Thinking about Danny, thinking about the people who betrayed her, thinking about why they sitting up here lying on me, why they calling me this, everything. Lou A say, I told that sentence up. Child, I tried to fix it up. I got you. We got you. This is no judgment zone. I spelled argument wrong for 2 hours.
That's the only way to hear this. This is the closest you're going to get to a confession from this woman. All right? You can read this as a confession to concealing Quentin's death by throwing him in the dumpster.
What's the last thing you remember before?
She looked like she needed a nap.
And then it goes to turning back to something. Have you seen that right when you got home or something? Like you came home to the line and you saw him. So that was like the 10 something, 2:40. We were home for the ride trip. And that's what's the memory of all that night. You know, in the trouble. Yeah.
So that was actually, I got my clips mixed up. That's actually just like the main story. That's the story for that day. I just don't remember 2-hour gap in memory. And then this is the bit about the trash bags. And what I'm urging you to view is something like a confession, the closest that you're going to get from this person.
Just a story with Stan and Brad. There was a trash bag there. Is that what Quentin was like? Before there was like 2 nights later. I should remember. There was some food. When I was trying to get it. Did you use a trash bag? I don't recall, but I had a trash bag on the house.
And then there's this. This also is something like a confession that she did at the dumpster, what she's charged with doing.
I'm going to say something. It's going to help with what is asking right now. This is a very small fraction of the mountain. What that was to get home is trash. And everything to look at and remember that is trash. You see how little those people are.
No, he didn't cry.
Do you think that we
But he seemed nervous and high.
if we didn't know that you put her in the dumpster and knew exactly where that dumpster went?
So that brings us back to the beginning of the indictment. We've made it through the end. I want to go back to the beginning and talk about the murder charges. Okay, because this is not just a concealing the death case. This is not.
So this is where they explain the different degrees of murder, the different charges. So let me pay attention.
So I do need to talk to you a little bit about murder. Now, one of the things the court is going to tell you, the judge will instruct you on this, that crimes have what are called essential elements. Those are the things that we have to prove. The essential elements of a crime. And these, it's actually a very short list, right? It's like bullet points. We have to prove that she caused the death of her son, Quentin Simon, a human being, that she did it unlawfully. And this word is not really in play in this case. It just means like it's no case where there's a defense to the killing, like self-defense or defense of others or something like that. And for malice murder, count 1, we have to prove that she did it with malice aforethought. Now, we have to talk about malice a little bit, okay, what it is and what it isn't. You might hear it and think, well, doesn't malice mean to hate somebody? Well, first of all, there's some evidence of that in this case. But it's a legal term. It's a technical term. And the judge will tell you it is not necessarily ill will or hatred. Rather, it is simply the unlawful intent to kill. You may find malice when the circumstantial evidence, show that the defendant acted with the deliberate intention to unlawfully take the life of another person. State does not have to prove premeditation to prove murder. Perhaps in some states you do, but in Georgia, the state does not have to prove premeditation to prove malice murder. If a killing is done with malice, again, just simply the intent to kill, that's it. It is murder regardless of how briefly the malicious intent existed. No specific length of time is required for malice to arise in the defendant's mind. Malice may be formed in a moment. If malice was in the defendant's mind at the time of the act of killing, that is enough for the killing to be murder. Malice may be express or implied or both. You may imply malice when all the circumstances of the killing show an abandoned and malignant heart. The judge will also tell you on the issue of intent that you can infer that people intend the natural and probable consequences of their actions. And if you make an assault on a 20-month child that is enough to kill them, and she did, you can infer that she intended to do it. You don't get to smother a baby or punch a toddler, I should say, or punch a toddler in the abdomen such that it lacerates his liver or something like that, or strangle a 20-month-old toddler, and then say, well, I didn't mean to kill him. The only way to kill a healthy 20-month-old child is on purpose, straight up. Manner of death is not an element of the crime. I imagine that the defense is going to say, well, gosh, they can't even tell you how it happened. Manner of death is not an element. We do not have to prove exactly how she did it, and in this case, how could you? She covered it up. She threw him in a dumpster so that he got ground up into little pieces. And now she wants to come in and say, can't catch me, you don't know how I did it. It is not an element that we need to prove. All the facts show that her intent was that he never be found at all, right? And that she get to just forevermore be the sympathetic mother of a missing child. Maybe go on, Dr. Phil every 5 years and appeal to the public for his return. And the next best thing for her, in her mind, is that he be so torn apart that the experts, despite their best efforts, can't tell exactly how she did it. But it doesn't matter because we don't have to prove it. And that is a sensible rule. That is a sensible rule. And I'll tell you this, if you get wrapped around the axle of that, you go back there and you say, well, gosh, how can we ever? No. You are getting played in the worst way. You are getting absolutely.
Very good job.
If you do that, you're bringing her plan to completion. You are telling her, hey, great job. You did a good enough job with the cover-up that you get to skate. Nobody likes to get played. Don't get played.
He is definitely playing on the jury.
There are 2 other murder counts on the indictment. Both of them are felony murder. Felony murder does not require the intent to kill. It just requires that you cause somebody's death in the course of committing a felony. Those 2 felonies, the first one is aggravated assault. You know what an assault is. It's just any kind of attack on a person of any sort. An aggravated assault is an assault that's done with an object that, when used offensively against a person, did result in serious bodily injury. And it did result in serious bodily injury because Quentin is dead. The identification of what the object was is not an element. The object in this context can be anything. And there are 100 cases.
A hand,
from the
a
Georgia
fist,
Supreme Court
hitting
saying
him and hitting his head
it
against
can
the
be
wall.
Your hands, it can be your feet, it can be a pillow, it can be the side of the pack and play, the corner of the pack and play, it can be your fist, It could be a blunt object that you pick up. It could be a sheet. It could be a blanket. The only way that he's dead is if she made an assault on him.
Let's not forget that vomit on the pillow case in the baby bed that was looking red.
Sort of
she could have tried to make him be quiet and put the pillow over his face and smother him.
Count 3, felony murder, is based on the felony of cruelty to a child in the first degree. You commit cruelty to a child in the first degree when you cause cruel and excessive physical pain to a child. What counts as cruel or excessive physical pain? There's no legal definition of what counts as cruel or excessive. That's for you to decide. And this is pretty straightforward here, right? The thing that she did to him was enough to cause him to die. It hurts to die. Right? So she committed.
It hurts to die. Ain't that something?
Also, it has the word malicious in it. It says maliciously.
Ain't that something? It hurts to die.
It's a different meaning of malice from in the context of malice murder, where it means intent to kill. Here it just means it wasn't an accident. Whatever you did on purpose. It wasn't an accident. And as with the previous 2 counts, the specific manner of the infliction of the pain, how exactly she hurt him, is not an element. It's not something that we have to prove. So, nobody wants to believe that a mother would do this. It's
right.
An unspeakable thing. Nobody wants to believe. You'd bend over backwards to believe it was anything but an intentional killing or an intentional assault that resulted in his death.
But hiding the baby body, that tells the story.
But the problem is all the evidence. Right? The problem is all the evidence. The police looked at every possibility. Right? There are only so many ways to die. There are only so many ways a healthy, robust toddler can die.
Lou, they only found the baby in I hate to sound blunt, but unfortunately they found little Quentin's body in pieces. Like the one part that we definitely saw from the forensic, and they showed it doing the opening statements, and it's from the anthropologist, or I think that's the one that does the bones, was a portion of the skull bone. They didn't find his baby in the dumpster. I mean, in the land, not the dumpster. They found his body in pieces in the landmine 32 days later. And it was like his bones, like pieces of the skull, bones, fragments, tissue. They didn't find that baby all together at all, not even close. Uh-oh, wrong one. Hold on, I got the other screen up so I can put up the poll, and I didn't got confused. Hold on, let me see. Oh Lord, did I start it all the way? Excuse me. Hold on. I didn't mess it up. Let me see. Hold on. Okay, I didn't got a little bit thrown off. My bad. Okay, here we go.
Dr. Quinta said the problem is all the evidence.
Okay, hold on. That's because I got another screen up, so when it's time to do the poll, my bad, y'all.
Tell us. If there was, tell us.
No problem, Lou.
But she never would. Because the truth was...
Yeah, in pieces. Yeah.
All of her actions after the fact, immediately after the fact, the flashlight...
And decomposing, of course, 32 days later.
Not yelling and saying, oh, something happened. Danny, help me. Quentin's not breathing. All that stuff, everything she did is totally incompatible with there having been some sort of accident. In her final interview on November 21st, when she's been told that
she's steady writing notes.
Being arrested for murder.
In the trial over, she's steady writing notes.
For murder.
Girl, boom.
This is like interview number 15. Now would be the time
to tell the truth.
If it was anything but that, anything but murder, anything but an intentional killing, anything but an intentional assault that resulted in his death. Now would be the time to say it. And she doesn't, because that's not what happened. This investigation ruled out an accident. The evidence ruled out an accident. This is something that they would have been happy to hear had it been true. There was no medical event. That's something that people
already.
You're looking at a charge like this, it's natural to look at a way out of it. Is there some other way we can go to avoid this conclusion? Nobody wants to believe this. Well, they looked into that. They got all of his medical records for his whole short life. Right? All of Quentin's medical records. And we put in front of you 2 doctors who had like the most direct treatment of him and the most recent in time to when he was killed. This is like a combined 60 years of medical experience. And they said, no. If you're looking for an out there, you're barking up the wrong tree. It wasn't that. Dr. Quinta said Quentin was thriving. And Dr. Birch told you how minor and unconcerning these things were. It was not some random freak medical event that just so happened to occur in the context of all those circumstances with what was going on with her that night. There's no SIDS. You might find yourself wanting to go down the, well, don't kids just sometimes die route to avoid calling this what it
But why would she put the body in the
No
dumpster?
SIDS.
Why
Way
not
too
call
old
it
for that.
emergency
Dr.
911?
Barisal told you that.
Why not wake everybody up in the house?
This has a lot to do with little tiny kids having a hard time, rolling and getting away from something that's obstructing their airflow and things like that. It's way too big for that. Way too big, way too strong. There's no accidental overdose. That was a possibility that was suggested by some lines of questioning, right? Cocaine and so forth. One, it seems like they were, actually fairly careful with that, and it's expensive, and you're not going to lay it around and so forth. Then you heard from a forensic toxicologist, right? Who looked at a bunch of stuff and didn't detect any of that on or in anything, including Quentin's brain tissue.
See, that's why I told you
Right,
there's
so they
tissue.
looked at all this stuff, and there are only so many ways to die. This was murder. There is nowhere else to go. This was murder. She killed him. Now, here's an instruction that's we really need to talk about in this case. Voluntary intoxication is not a defense. It is not a defense to a crime if you became intoxicated on purpose and then committed a crime.
That's good. That's
a
good.
lot of what is going on here. She's essentially saying that is what happened.
But she's not taking on responsibility.
That is classic voluntary intoxication. Getting so fucked up that you do something. You don't get to drive drunk and wipe out a family floor and come out of your blackout. And she wasn't blacked out. She's lying about that. And say, oh, my bad. Oh, you guys didn't know I was drunk. And then the court system
No
says,
excuse.
oh, you were drunk?
No
Oh, I didn't forget
excuse.
about it. That's not how it works.
So not.
That would be crazy if that were how it worked. A huge percentage of people that commit murder are under the influence of something. But you're responsible for your own actions.
Exactly.
And by the way, if you're intoxicated to the point that it's impacting your faculties, and what comes out is that you murder that child that you don't like, that was in there somewhere.
Wow. That's good.
Some people think the truth comes out when you're intoxicated. That was in there somewhere.
It just
This is
heightens
not a
it.
defense. So let's just look at a couple of clips of the most she could say in her defense in this case.
What do you think people are going to say when it comes out that we found him? Horrible mother. You were killing his child. God knows exactly
Yeah, that's what we're saying. Oh yeah. She admitting it. She trying to say it's not
Lack of
premeditated.
premeditation and it having been an impulsive thing is not a defense to murder. Most murders are impulsive, snap decisions. Every now and then you have a cold, calculated hit by like a contract killer or something like that. Most murders are just somebody snapping and killing somebody. And malice can be formed in an instant. There is nothing about what she's saying here that makes this anything other than murder. And it sounds like a confession to the state.
It does. Does that sound like a confession to y'all? Not I'm praying to God. I'm hoping to God. It's some little things.
That if it came out that she did it, if the
Now,
evidence showed that she did it, that she would take.
Pause. This video y'all finna see. This news reporting, right? She did this news reporting. This is the only time she went on the news. And she did this news interview after, keyword, after they found the baby's body in the landfill. The only time she went on the news about this baby was after they found the baby's body and people were starting to come to her house and like bang on the windows and people were starting to be outside the house. 4 people got arrested outside our house for public, what is that? Disturbing the peace or something like that. It was only after they started getting threats and stuff that her and her mama, that's her mama, Billy Joe, did a news interview. Keep that in mind. Yeah, and trespassing. 4 people went to jail. Then they did this interview.
Her responsibility. And it's time for that now.
Uh-oh.
We are there.
Hold on.
And if something does come up that I didn't have at fault, I will take myself to that police station.
The evidence has proven that she's responsible. It has proven it. And it is time for her to take responsibility for it. I put this picture up here because I think it kind of captures what happened in this case.
These people, different members of this was all volunteer work for 32 days. Everybody who went out to that landfill every day in that stinking landfill in feet of trash, debris, all that kind of stuff, that biohazard, all these people was unpaid volunteers for 32 days. All these people on their time off, on their days off, was out there looking for this baby, not paid. All volunteers, going through inch by inch by inch with a fine-tooth comb looking for that baby.
Law enforcement searched through tons of garbage, through a great deal of garbage to find the truth in this case. Both the searchers at the landfill, who broke their backs out there day in and day out, and in a more figurative sense, the interviewers who had to sift through all of the garbage that she was throwing at them the whole time.
Let me say this too. So how they got that trash right there raking through it? Okay, that don't look like a lot of trash. But the reality is it was mountains of trash, and they would take like layer off the top of this mountain of trash. They would take a layer down, and that's what you see spread out. So they would comb through that layer And then they go back to the actual mountain of tons of trash and take down another layer of trash. So what you see right now is one layer off of a mountain of trash. Okay?
They did their job. The police come in for some
Incredible.
criticism.
Incredible.
That's a complex
To me,
conversation.
very incredible.
Good points to be made on both sides. But what everybody can agree on is that the police should be looking for missing children and trying to hold those responsible to account, trying to figure out who did it. And they did their job in this case. They sifted through the garbage and they found the truth. We have done our best as a prosecution team to present the truth to you in a clear and organized manner. And it's a difficult thing to do when you have an investigation that is this thorough and this broad-ranging to come in.
And all circumstantial.
Everything that matters to a jury in a way that makes sense. And we've tried to do that. We've tried to show you the truth and to not waste your time. Now it is your turn to find the truth, to look for the truth, to speak the truth. You may recognize these words, you may not. These are the last couple of words from the oath that you took when you were sworn as jurors. And you promised to a true verdict give according to the evidence. And a true verdict give according to the evidence. So help you God. That's what you had to promise to do. Now, Quentin is gone. He is not coming back. Depending on what you believe, Quentin is either with God or his short life on earth was all he ever had. I know what I prefer. He is gone. There's really nothing we can do for him. The only thing the only thing you can do in any murder case, the only thing we can do to honor his memory
is brain
justice. To just simply tell the truth about what happened to him. Tell the truth about what happened to him. And don't perpetuate the defendant's lies that this was anything.
That's good. That's real good.
I expect that you're going to hear about the burden of proof in the defense closing argument and the concept of reasonable doubt. And, when all the evidence is against you, really the only play is to argue the burden of proof and talk about reasonable doubt.
Right.
If somebody gets wrapped around the axle. The judge will give you the instruction on reasonable doubt, and you'll see that the words common sense are right in there. Common sense are in there. It's right in there. That's the core of what it's all about, is just getting back there and applying your common sense. And we are confident that if you go back in the jury room and you apply your common sense in this case, that you'll return a verdict that speaks the truth about what you did to Quentin. Thank you.
You go, Judge Tammy Stokes.
My preference to go directly into defense closing argument. I believe this is a good time for a break.
So there you have it, folks. That is the defense closing statements. And what's so amazing to me, the more and more I watch these trials with you guys and on my own, is that, and I've never been on jury duty, right? But what's absolutely incredible to me is the fact that at the beginning, when they're doing the jury charge and talking to the jury, you're not supposed to make any decision on the trial. Like, you're not supposed to start deliberating at all or make up your mind until after the whole trial, after all the evidence, after the closing statements by both people, and they send you to deliberate. You are not supposed to come to no conclusion, and you're not supposed to, this is what they tell the instructed jurors, you cannot deliberate and make up your mind to everything. I would be a horrible juror, because I decided a long time ago that she was guilty. Could y'all do that? I just don't know if I could do that. Lou A say, I'm interested to know how to make up this jury. like men, women, colors. Considering the colorful language the prosecutor has chosen to interject during his closing argument. Right, you would think it wouldn't be no older jurors. Aretha's twin. We said Anita Baker. What's up, Sparkle? Hey, Demetra, baby, can you please go get One Love 858? She has been bullied and harassed for 2 to 3 years by BMF King Louis. I need the whole beef sector to tear him to shreds. No, I don't know them people. Thank you. Thank you. Lady Sparkle, was that you who did the interview on Trish's? Because I shared the video tonight on my wall, but I already had my schedule live. So I said I was going to go back. Are you the one who did the interview with Trish tonight? Let me know in the comments. So we're not going to go on no break, of course. We're going to go straight into the defense. Oh, my God. I thought the other guy, the nice lawyer, was going to do the closing arguments. Oh, interesting.
Present, Miss Simon is present with her counsel. And at this point, is the state ready to proceed?
We're just talking about what?
And Mr. Hilliard, are you ready to
say
proceed?
what?
We're ready to proceed.
What
All
is
right,
Sparkle
very
talking about?
Please bring in the jury.
I don't know those people. Baby, Sparkle be having her own world over there. I be going to check in on Sparkle. I don't never know what Sparkle talk about. All right, so here go the defense. Ladies, Miss Steph 219 say she couldn't, that you be in the same position. Right. And I think that's kind of human nature. I guess what you would have to do is, even if you have your own humanistic thought already in your feeling, I think the trick of it must be to keep an open mind. Like, even if I got a feeling from day 3 and the evidence as a juror, I feel like, oh, she guilty. I guess the trick of it would be to keep my mind open. Don't shut down. Keep listening to the evidence. Keep remembering that she's still innocent until the whole case is made. I guess that's all I could do. Lady Steph say they need the more aggressive one to do the defense side for closing. They are hoping that he can be more
and members of the jury. Okay. Able to follow the court's instructions.
Hold on, Tammy. Hold on, Judge Tammy Stokes. That part, D. But keep in mind, those jurors are also likely to have formed some opinions prior to. There ain't no way. That's what I'm saying. I think it comes down to really being able to honestly keep an open mind. Lady Steph, didn't you say you've been on a jury a couple of times and you've been the foreman? Next time they call me for jury duty, y'all, I'm going to go. Okay.
Have there been any discussions about the case? Have you?
But I don't think they don't call me for no jury duty. I'm a felon.
Any research?
I think I'm a double felon.
With that, I will turn to Mr. Hilliard.
That's not cute. But I'm just saying.
Good almost afternoon. Thank you for your time. It seems like a long time ago, back on October 9th, when we started to select this jury.
Yeah, Diamond, you wouldn't be
back
selected.
Then we asked a bunch of questions.
Okay, let me be quiet.
And the most important of which was whether or not you could set aside your feelings and your emotions. And
this is the most aggressive one.
Juror, to which all of you said you could.
See.
The reason why I bring that up now is because of something the state just said about the burden of proof. The burden of proof is the requirement. The state has to overcome the burden of proof. Okay, they hate it. They have complete and utter disdain for it, which is why Mr. Dean used the term wrapped around the axle, as if you hold the state to their burden of proof that there's something wrong with you, that you're not normal or straight, or you're getting twisted. That's not really how our system of government and our court systems work. We selected you, and you are the perfect jurors for this case. We're not asking you to set aside your life experiences. We're not asking you to set aside your feelings or anything like that. You were selected for who you are and your unique
That's good.
experiences.
Everything I just talked
in the
about.
state of Georgia. In that regard, you are the perfect jury to consider this case. Now, and I say that, and during the course of this, there is nothing personal between Mr. Dean or Ms. Parker or myself or Mr. Purse or Ms. Lemons or any of the witnesses. But it's an adversarial system, okay? I am their adversary. It is my job to stand up and defend my client, Ms. Simon's rights. And it is my job to hold the state to their burden of proof. I don't take that task lightly. And it's been my job to do that since we began. Now, what happens next is I take that responsibility and I turn it over to you. And I'm going to start with my biggest fear. And my biggest fear is this case deals with so much emotion. It has from the beginning. I don't think that's an overstatement or an understatement. And I know there were times during the course of this trial where every single one of us felt something deep down inside of us. On more than one occasion, we've seen witnesses break down, seen jurors break down. It's a serious matter. But the law gives us guidance on what we're supposed to do when that happens. When it comes to emotion, the law says that the case must not be side-decided, for or against anyone because you feel sorry for anyone or you're angry at anyone. Your verdict is to be based on evidence. It's not to be based on emotion. And in times during the course of this trial, the emotion was directly pointed at you. How could it be otherwise? And I think that it's important for all of us to acknowledge that. There were things that were done to draw your emotion up, to play upon your emotions, to manipulate and twist your emotions. Things to get you angry, things to get you upset, things to dehumanize Miss Simon. Things to get you to make judgments about her that have nothing to do with the evidence in the case. Now, I wasn't the one doing this, but these things were done. And to pretend that they were not is just not accurate. You heard a lot from witnesses. And I'm going to talk about, there's basically 4 types of witnesses. And I like to identify them because it's up to you to determine, just like Mr. Dean said, the manner and method of testifying, Tiki. What type of witnesses they are. As a defense lawyer, I basically put them down into 4 different types. Number 1 is a police witness. Police witness can be unbiased or biased. It basically depends. I mean, to be quite fair, a police witness is paid government money to investigate and prosecute crimes. Some of them think they have to put their fingers on the scales. Other ones don't, but they're police witnesses. That's kind of one of the first categories I put them in. The second one is the civilian witness. Of course, that's an easy one. Denard Johnson, Waste Pro, those guys. They're just a civilian witness that get called into the investigation. Paul Simon, one of my personal favorite, a civilian witness. Ms. Bowling, civilian witness. Then there's what I call like a fact witness, someone that you would normally never hear from, but they just have some sort of fact to give. They can be civilian or they can be police. In this particular case, I would say any of the forensic examiners.
Yeah, because he know his by heart. I like when they know it by heart.
And the final one is what I basically would call a sock puppet. A sock puppet witness is somebody, and it's usually a police investigator or someone like that.
Funny built Tiki like a mushroom.
Basically gets up and wants to parrot what the state's theory is. Now, in this particular case, emotions were very high. I don't think that's an extravagant statement. And a lot of the witnesses are going to say, well, this didn't conform to normal, or this wasn't right, or basically she reacted differently. That's not what the law calls for. The law calls for you to base your verdict on evidence. Okay? And the reason it's my biggest fear you're going to base it on emotion or something that's not completely or at all relevant to the issue is
Exactly. Looking inhuman.
it's difficult to push these feelings
Unhuman.
aside.
Whatever, how you say
It's
it.
difficult to put this prejudice aside, and it's difficult to look at evidence, especially in a case dealing with a dead 20-month-old. I cannot think of a harder case to do it in. Now,
The words used.
Quentin Simon was a sweet, innocent child.
Yep.
I don't think anyone said anything different. He died far too young. I don't think anyone said anything different. And if I have, to any extent that you've maybe thought that that's where I was going with that, I apologize. I never, ever, ever meant to come across that way, and I don't think that I have. There's no doubt about these two things, and no one in here disputes it. But to parade witnesses up here, witness after witness, basically they're going to testify, that testify for the state, and to make this argument that in some way, shape, or form, who Miss Simon was having sexual affairs with was in any way, shape, or form relevant to the question of how Quentin Simon died is just horrendous. It's meant to evoke an emotional response from you. We said in the beginning that most, if not all, of the state's case was based upon speculation and character assassination. I believe those are the exact words Mr. Peirce used. And we sat here for an hour and 28 minutes and listened to Mr. Dean say exactly that. Now, this was their strategy from the beginning. They can pretend that they did something. I'm not saying that the task was Herculean, obviously, to search the landfill. I learned more about landfills than I've ever wanted to know in this case. But the state made a misstatement in its closing. I asked Mr. Johnson on cross, there were 1,500 loads of trash in that landfill from all over Chatham County and surrounding counties. They pretend like there wasn't other places this could have come from. And the reason why is because they have to. I asked Mr. Youngkin a lot of questions. Mr. Youngkin, quite frankly, the state has to believe Mr. Youngkin's testimony.
No. Oh, I'm sorry. I can't be saying no. Let me get my emotion out of it. I don't get where he was going with why did he say that about the trash came from other places? What was his point with that? And then he didn't even elaborate or give any supporting statements behind just throwing it out there. He goes to Danny. But whatever. He lost me. He had me for a minute, but now he's losing me, okay?
Depends on it. Because of Mr. Youngkin's statement that he saw Quentin Simon at 3 a.m., saw Quentin Simon at 5:30 a.m., and then texted the babysitter, and Quentin was fine, their entire theory of the case falls apart. They have to believe Mr. Youngkin. Mr. Youngkin is the best example of a sock puppet witness we have. He had every reason to get up there and say exactly what they wanted him to say. And we heard very early on, he told them that he was trying to save his own butt. And that's fine. I get it. He went so far as to wire a hotel room with video and audio and to tap his own phone to try and incriminate Ms. Simon for the police. Okay? That's Mr. Youngkin. Now, the state strategy and the way it's presented its case has been basically to tell you, and
I see y'all.
I don't think I'm stating anything out of place here, that Miss Simon was a slut, a party girl, someone who lies, a horrible mother, someone who didn't act appropriately as a mother.
Not a slut.
All of these things could be true more or less to some extent, but none of these things have anything to do with the central question in this case.
My.
And they still haven't answered that question with evidence, not speculation.
A whole slut, okay?
The central question in this case is how did Quentin Simon die? Where did Quentin Simon die?
You think so, Lou?
And in what manner did Quentin?
I think a lot of times, and this is only my opinion, but I think when you're doing public speaking or persuasive speaking to a group of mixed audience, I think that you have to talk to the smallest denominator, right? I don't know if I'm saying that right, but I think it's always safe to talk to the slowest person in the room. Not meaning they slow, but you want to make sure that everybody get it and not some of the people. So the only way that you can make sure that everybody get it is by talking to by talking at the level the y'all know what I'm trying to say. Y'all get what I'm trying to say? And I think that may be why it's coming across that way, because you don't want to miss anybody. You want to talk to the most layman of the group, so you can make sure that you have a full understanding. Excuse me.
They've charged Miss Simon.
I didn't express that well.
Okay, that's a hell of a thing. And it's supposed to be a tall order. So I'm sorry if the burden of proof seems a little lax.
Okay, y'all get what I'm saying.
Inconvenient to the state. But in this particular case, they made the allegations. And here's the thing. Mr. Dean was explaining this because they really don't have any idea about any of these things. They just have their best guess. The state,
you want to do that.
with regard to counts 1, 2, and 3, comes down to their wild ass
Exactly,
guess.
Winter. Yeah, we get it.
Because any part of their theory and speculation that changes, it falls apart. Mr. Dean was talking about the door opening and closing. Well, he played the video for you. The first video was she said that the front door was unlocked. Okay, he spent this entire trial saying it was open. That wasn't what she said, but okay, whatever. I understand that you have to say that and you have to see it that way because your entire theory falls on that. But let's just assume for a minute that, okay, so she said it was unlocked and it was shut. Well, the back door was opening and closing all night long. Okay. Now, Danny Youngkin said he went to sleep. He has to believe that Danny Youngkin was asleep. His case depends on that. Why? You've seen the layout of the room. Okay, you saw the racing bed where one child slept. You saw the pack and play where Quentin slept, and you saw where the baby slept, and then you saw where Danny and Leilani slept. It was one room, wide open.
Excuse me.
They have to have Danny asleep, and they have to have their exact timeline, because to do otherwise destroys it. What happens if Danny's testimony was correct? It doesn't fit their timeline. So, of course, they had to go in with Danny Youngkin from the beginning. Now,
I did not like
they
them.
didn't come right out of the gate
I'm not a
and show
good
you
juror.
any evidence of time, manner, method of death, or anything like that, because they don't have it, and they're never going to have it.
I'm an emotional reactor.
They're asking you to use your emotion to get angry and to convict based upon that. And
That man say you don't have to do that.
Now, we're at the end of a journey here that's been 2 years in the making.
I think he's been effective too in some of it because it's mainly circumstantial evidence.
The key question here is how did Quentin
They don't
die?
have a motive. They don't
That's
have
why
a
we're all
manner.
here. That's really it.
They got pieces
Was
of
it
a
an
body.
accident? Was it a murder? What was it?
Yeah, she's very unlikable.
Especially as it relates to the aggravated assault, the cruelty to a children, and the murder charges in the indictment. What happened to him? What is proven beyond?
We don't know, Lou.
and
We
to
don't
the
know.
exclusion of every other reasonable doubt. Not just some, but every single one. That's the burden of proof. And they've never answered those questions. In fact, there was a great deal of things you're probably looking for and never really got. For most of this, they were trying to say that October 4th was going out to 204 to see Craig. That didn't materialize. They had the text messages, which you can look at. And the thing is, I don't really understand how any relationship with Craig does anything to shed any light on how Quentin died. Unless you believe the fevered dream they've come up with, that in some way, shape, or form, this has something to do with her attention seeking. And I don't get that, because if someone is craving that much attention and they find that attention and they have someone that gives them that attention, wouldn't that take away the struggle? Wouldn't that take away the strain? I don't buy that. Now, as regards to counts 1, 2, and 3, let's talk about, Mr. Dean did talk about this a little bit.
Okay, Lou, good point.
Accident. I don't know whether an accident happened or not. It's good a theory as any. We do know there was vomit.
I said that.
We do know there was an overwhelming smell of vomit.
I said
We saw
about that.
Sergeant Stewart, one of the first officers to respond, refused to go in the house on his body-worn camera when Lemons went in because of the smell of vomit. This man was a 35-year-old detective. I mean, 35-year-old police officer. He's been on the force for 35 years. Okay? He noted that. Lemons noted that. But you know who didn't know that?
Who?
Danny Youngkin. Nowhere at any point in time did he ever note that. Now, I'm not saying that Danny did anything wrong. My theory is that indicates
Good
some
point,
sort of
Winter.
accident, some sort of suffocation, something.
I said that.
I don't know. But the difference is I don't have a fixed interest in the outcome there. They do, which is why they have to build this mountain out of a molehill.
Mountain out of a
They don't
molehill.
have that evidence. They never will have that evidence. They
That
have to
was
depend
a
on
horrible
Youngkin.
turn of
Because
words.
if
to
anything
me.
changes, if he was up at 3 a.m., he said this was a feed sky, and Quentin was fine. Never explained that one. If Quentin's fine at 3 a.m., like Danny Youngkin said, their favorite witness, then the 1 o'clock Azalea trip doesn't matter, does it? They have to believe that. They have to peddle that. They have to sell that. They have to say he was mistaken or wasn't lying, which is always interesting to me.
Baby, Rock is not fucking with me, y'all.
I would love to solve
Rock
the
don't
case.
want
I
no
really
parts
would.
of mama.
But I don't have to. They do. I have just as many wild theories as they do. Everybody does. But I don't have to prove them. And more importantly, and this is the most important thing about that, I can have as many wild theories and stand here and tell you those theories as they do. Okay? But it doesn't change the burden of proof. It's just wild speculation, not unlike anything they've done. It doesn't change that the burden of proof lay with them. And the fact is, and they don't like to talk about this, or maybe they do, maybe they try and gloss over it. With regards to counts 1, 2, and 3, they have not come close to meeting their burden of proof. The time, manner, method of death. Yeah, that's not part of the requirements, but you have to show that it happened that way. There's no evidence that it was a homicide. There's no evidence that it was murder. None. Zero. Zilch. There never will be. And that's the thing they can't talk about. Because to talk about it and to give voice to it undermines their case. But you don't have to believe me. They don't know what happened. Their indictment says they don't know what happened. The state had to concede that in their closing argument, that they don't know what happened. You cannot speculate someone into a guilty verdict, ladies and gentlemen. And Mr. Dean used an example, and I like this example. It's actually a pretty good example.
You know what, Lou? It's real funny that you asked that, right? Because Lou says, is there such a thing as counter closing arguments? Right? Winter says she over him. Tiki say, he turns me off. He turned me off. I start playing with my dog and everything. Ooh, I sound like an old lady. It's funny that you bring that up, Lou, and I don't know if you maybe have seen this or not already, but, and I hadn't listened to all the closing arguments so I could watch with you guys. However, because I recorded this clip, well, we didn't use that one because of the sound, but they actually gonna do a rebuttal. I never saw that before, but I think they do a rebuttal.
And it cuts both ways. He was talking about, I'll use a different example just to kind of differentiate. Circumstantial evidence. Okay, circumstantial evidence. The example in Georgia is if you're sitting in here and you walk outside and you look around, and when you walked in, the ground was dry, and you walk out, the ground is wet, then you can infer it rained, right? Makes sense. But what you can't do is walk out, see a wet ground, and infer that it's snowing in Denver. Those aren't the same things.
Y'all know Judge Boyd give that example a little bit.
Speculation.
About the rain outside?
There was no evidence. I asked
umbrella or something like that.
If having the vomit would have made a difference in what she could and couldn't do, and she said yes. I don't control that. They do. You heard from the young lady from the forensic toxicology lab that she didn't have enough to test the vomit. Now, why would that matter? If it was if it was just normal vomit, you would need to know that. He could have choked on normal vomit. If it was toxic vomit from getting some sort of poison or some sort of drugs, you need to know that.
Yeah, they should have tested that, but they didn't.
Okay. We don't. At least she said there wasn't enough to test, and I have no reason to doubt her.
Why wouldn't it be enough when it was all over the pillowcase?
It doesn't cut either way. And here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, about the burden of proof and circumstantial evidence. When there's a tie in the evidence like that, the tie goes to the defendant every single time.
That's interesting.
It doesn't go to the state, it goes to the defendant.
That's interesting.
Now, when I was in law school, I had a professor who liked to tell this story to illustrate an example. Father takes his son to the restaurant. They're sitting in the restaurant. He says, "Here, son, draw a picture of a horse." So he draws a head, a neck, a back, 4 legs, and a tail. It's like, "How many legs does that horse have, son?" He goes, 4. He goes, "Now, what if the tail is a leg?" He goes, "Well, 5. He goes, "No, son.
The tail is never a leg.
The horse only has 4 legs. It doesn't have 5 just because I tell you that the tail is a leg. The tail is still a leg." So I can stand here and tell you stuff all day long. It doesn't make it true. Why do I say that? Well, the judge will charge you on this as well. The questions from the lawyers are not evidence. And I have to point that out in this case because there were a lot of very long-winded questions from the state. But that's not evidence. What comes from the witness stand and the exhibits is evidence. Now, why do I point that out? Daniel Youngkin was overlooked from the beginning. He started cooperating with them from the beginning.
I said that he did.
Okay? They literally did not look at him for anything. He made some statements to them which either, if they were true, blew up their timeline, and if they were not, were a lie and questioned his credibility. So they have a vested interest in believing him. So let's talk about him leaving. The question for you to determine is do you believe Danny Youngkin when he said that Quentin was alive at 3 a.m. when he got up to check on Scott? If you do, that blows up your case.
Why?
Do you believe Danny Youngkin when he said he woke up at 5:30 or 5 o'clock to get ready to go to work?
Not
And
sucker.
then Quentin was fine? And then
Not
texted
sucker.
the babysitter that the kids were going to stay home? If you do, it blows up their timeline. Do you believe the statements from the witness stand that was all bull? That he was fed up with her? And whatever excuse he gave from the witness stand, quite frankly. Because if you do, then it means he was lying before. Now, I would have asked you to think about one of the witnesses who did testify, Paul Simon. He was personally one of my favorite witnesses.
The brother.
But he testified exactly different than what Mr. Dean wants you to believe. He knew Danny. And he testified from the witness stand that on that day in that yard, when they were talking to the police, Danny seemed unfazed. He didn't seem upset. He seemed unfazed by this. Now, does that mean I think that Danny did anything wrong? Not necessarily.
Reasonable doubt. I'm making these faces, but reasonable doubt.
My theory can work the same way as their theory can. Danny woke up at 5, saw something that happened to Quentin, freaked out, doing the trash on the way to work, came home. He doesn't know anything. Does it mean he did anything wrong? No, I don't think Danny or Miss
That's
Simon
a hell of a
harmed
stretch.
Quentin in any way, shape, or form. The evidence doesn't show that. I don't have any reason to speculate that. I don't have any vested interest in that particular outcome. They do. But it's in their best interest to believe that. It's in their best
Going out the
interest,
room?
when I say them, I mean the state, to try and sell that and peddle that. I asked Danny why he stayed here. Even Paul was so funny. He's like, man, this is what you signed up for. If you don't like it, because he said Danny was complaining when he got home. They forgot that part. Okay, they didn't want to mention that part because it shows Danny was unhappy. It's like, man, you signed up for this. If you don't like it, leave. I asked him why he didn't leave. And remember what he said? I wanted my daughter. Well, you know what? Between October 5th and October 9th or 12th or whatever the hell it was that he left Savannah, he didn't get his daughter because I asked him that question too.
Oh, my.
So the whole reason he stayed didn't.
Oh, I know you were talking to him, calling him a
That didn't seem
sucker.
to faze them at all.
Oh, I know.
But it's something you got to question. Ladies and gentlemen, emotional decisions are almost always bad decisions. Okay? You have facts on your side, argue the facts. You have the law on your side, you argue the law. And whenever you don't have either on your side, at least with regards to the first 3 counts of this indictment, you depend on emotion. And that's what they've done. I don't mean to
Exactly. Ernest goes
come
to camp.
across sounding harsh or cynical or pessimistic. And I don't mean to imply that the feelings that you and the officers and the search team and probably millions of other people have felt about Quentin Simon are not real. They are. I just mean to point out that they're not evidence.
Yes.
And that's what we're here for. They have to prove through evidence. Now, you're going to have to go back into the liberation room. You're going to have to look at the actual evidence. And you're going to have to look at the actual law. And you're going to have to come up with common sense and use your judgment and leave the emotion at the door. It's a court of law. It's about cold, hard facts.
I'm sorry, y'all. Hold on. Let me let him out this room before he bite me. Come on. I'm holding you hostage. You about to bite me? Bye. Don't come back no more.
Not emotions, not feelings, not speculations, not mine, not theirs. I can't speak for you, but I've made emotional decisions in my life, and I can tell you to about a 99% accuracy that most of those emotional decisions were wrong. Not all of them, just most of So you're going to have to go back there, and you're going to have to deliberate on each and every count of this indictment. And you're going to have to make decisions about each and every witness that testified. And then you're going to have to come up with a verdict. Now, the reason why I say that is there is another alternative solution. I'm not surprised when a 21 and 28-year-old couple who have a child together, who are doing drugs together, who lie about doing drugs together, doesn't surprise me. It also doesn't have an inference of committing murder. Okay? That's what we're here for. That is the elephant in the room. The state does not like to talk about Danny. Danny was just as much involved in the drugs as Miss Simon was. Involuntary intoxication is not a defense. We're not even saying that. Okay? What I am saying is it's just not very honest to say they weren't doing drugs. And Danny said he wasn't responsible, but that was in response to, I mean, I'm sorry. You're in a room full of small minor children doing drugs that are toxic to those children. Is there any manner or method in which doing those drugs in that room can be deemed responsible? But he went out of his way to put, it was on top of a chest of drawers they couldn't reach. Anyone who's had children knows, and you don't have to leave your common sense at the door for this. Children get into everything. Okay? They do. They get out of everything. They get into everything. That is just what they do. And
they get up on everything.
These were some mean ass kids.
He did say they were some mean ass kids.
I suspect that no matter how responsible you are, they could get into something. Is that what happened here?
Exactly, Lady Steph.
But neither do they.
This man that said Danny might have dropped off the baby to the dumpster on his way to work. That's a stretch.
Talk about
and they got videotape of her at the dumpster.
Mobile home. To Mr. Dean, one of the things my dad told me was when you're a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. Okay?
That's good. When you're a hammer, every problem looks like a nail.
His timeline only works.
That's
and I don't understand. He's right. Motive's not an element of crime. But his timeline only works if it happens exactly the way he said it did. In order to believe that, you have to believe Danny Youngkin. You have to believe that he, on his own, without
I don't think he's a public defender. I think that they must be doing this pro bono.
Said that at 3 o'clock, Quentin was fine, and 5:30, Quentin was fine when he left, and texted the babysitter.
Indigo is not impressed.
Without ever checking on one of those two things. But see, here's the thing. He was being questioned by the police.
Not rock at the door, at my bedroom door, barking to get back in. No, homeboy. You bark to go out, you stay out.
You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out if they're questioning you and pushing you that it's probably not a good thing. They never asked for a reasonable explanation of that because it would screw up their timeline. What if he was the 1 a.m. trip? That would screw up their timeline too. What if he wasn't? That would screw up their timeline too, especially if he said that she was fine at 3 o'clock. So now, that being said, Ms. Simon doesn't have to prove herself innocent of these charges. The state has to prove her guilty. And Mr. Dean said, well, we've done that, so you don't have to consider that. No. That's not how this works. Okay? You have to consider.
Girl, he didn't throw his body against the door and bust open the door.
Not consider what I'm saying or his theory. You have to consider what you come up with. And with that, I'm going to get to what the burden of proof is. And how you the judge is going to give you the law. And I'm going to tell you if there's any conflict between anything I say or anything Mr. Dean says, the judge is the ultimate arbiter of this. And give me 1 second. I think I misplaced what I was looking for.
Hush.
So, count 1 is malice murder. In order to be malice murder, there has to be malice aforethought. Ms. Simon had to unlawfully cause the death
Now,
of
y'all,
Simon as
listen
human
to
being.
these
If you
murder
believe
charges
beyond a reasonable doubt that the state has proven that she did that, the only verdict you can return is a guilty verdict. But
exactly.
if you think there's no trace of that evidence whatsoever, your verdict has to be not guilty. If there's any evidence at all, even the smallest measure amount of evidence, a scintilla of evidence, your verdict has to be not guilty. That's not beyond a reasonable doubt. If you think that there's reasonable suspicion to think she may have did it, the only verdict you can return is not guilty. Because it has to be beyond a reasonable doubt. If you think that the greater weight of the evidence is in the state's favor versus the defendant's favor, slightly, that's what we call a preponderance, then your only verdict you can return is not guilty, because the standard is beyond a reasonable doubt. If you have a firm belief that everything that Mr. Dean and the state is putting forth is true, but you have a reasonable doubt as to what actually happened, you can state a reason as a fair, impartial juror, the only verdict you can return then is not guilty.
How is that possible?
The only way you can get to guilty is if you're convinced beyond a reasonable doubt. That's a high burden of proof. And I present to you, ladies and gentlemen, as to count 1, there is no way to get there.
Right.
As to count 2,
You want to get on the bed, I think.
and I'm being specific on this. Yeah, they don't have to tell you what the offensive weapon was, but they have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that it happened the way they said. There's zero evidence of that. Count 3.
He just took a bath.
Count 3 is the count that has to do with cruelty to a child, I believe. Now, their theory is that Miss Simon went into a room with 2 other sleeping children and Mr. Youngkin and did something to Quentin Simon without anyone hearing it or waking up, and then left to dump his body. Despite the evidence that Daniel Youngkin said he was fine at 3, despite the evidence that Daniel Youngkin said he was fine at 5:30, despite the evidence that he's the one that texted the babysitter. So let's turn to the concealing a death count. Again, the standard of burden of proof is the same for all of these counts. So I'm not going to be repetitive and do it for each one because I don't get paid by the word. So there's no reason. You can
get paid by the word.
And assume that the standard stays the same. Concealing the death of another. The only way that count is proven beyond a reasonable doubt is if you believe that Quentin Simon's body was in the bag and she threw the bag in the trash at the Azalea Mobile Home Park at 1-something in the morning, beyond a reasonable doubt. There's not evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. There's evidence she said she went.
It's circumstantial evidence. He totally discounted circumstantial evidence, but he was a defense attorney, you know?
Cokeheads do cocaine. Opiate users do opiates. Weed smokers smoke weed. Okay? You have the text messages, and you have Mr. Youngkin's testimony. Mr. Youngkin told you that they were using every day at this point. Okay? So you have the statement that Leilani was trying to cover for Daniel. Their theory is that was a lie, but Daniel's the one that
it's 3 counts of murder.
They don't seem to have any questions about that. That's all.
It's 3 counts of murder, and all the rest of them, like maybe what is it? Maybe 14 other charges. Is the it's 3 counts of murder, malicious murder, felony murder, and the felony murder with aggravated assault, right? And then it's the hiding, concealing of a body, and then the rest of it is all false statements. So what I'm trying to figure out is, out of the 3 different murder charges, is one of them a lesser count? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Like when you got murder in the first degree, murder in the second degree, manslaughter, right? When they got those type of charges, you already know if you got to be found guilty of one of them, you want to get found guilty of manslaughter. It's a lesser charge, less time, right? So I'm trying to figure out with these 3 charges, it's confusing to me, like which one of those hold the more weight, the malicious murder or the one of the 2 felony murders. And I'm trying to figure it out because on my poll, I haven't dropped it yet, but the polls say guilty of all, no, it's saying guilty of all charges, not guilty of all charges, and I put on there guilty of lesser charges. Y'all let me know what options y'all think I should put on the poll. Let me know.
Always seemed odd to me. As a detective, going to detect stuff, walking into a scene where a child's abducted, my first instinct would be the non-related boyfriend or husband of the mother. But that doesn't seem to be the case here because it doesn't fit the timeline. That doesn't mean that I think Danny necessarily did anything wrong. No. But it seems like a natural, obvious question to ask. It seems like a natural, obvious investigation to make.
Well, that gave me
And
some information, Lady Steph, as far as how they determine the years.
He helped out almost immediately. He turned on her almost immediately. He set up the hotel video and audio surveillance almost immediately.
2 days later.
Wiretap for 60 days. Now they talk about that and they play these little excerpts from the statements, but the consistency from Miss Simon has been the entire time that she never harmed Quentin. And she didn't dump his body. So it is a hell of a thing, but if you're going to accuse somebody of a hell of a crime, you better have a hell of a good amount of evidence. That might start with actually proving that a murder occurred versus an accident. We don't have that here. So, ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
Correct, Lady Steph. But riddle me this. What about the fact that it's 3 charges of murder? It's a malicious murder. We know for a fact that everybody didn't explain that. We got the malicious murder, and then you got the 2 separate counts on the indictment of one of them was felony murder, and one of them was another type of murder, felony murder, right? So I'm wondering, out of the malicious murder and the 2 types of felony murder, which one of them would have the lesser amount? That's what I'm kind of stuck on right now, trying to figure out, you know?
You've been sitting here for 8 days of evidence and almost a half day of argument at this point. So I'm going to ask you, when you go back, and I'm going to
none of them saying it.
Up, I don't give a damn about lying about smoking weed.
They just be cussing.
I really don't. Okay? Most drug users lie about their drug use, Mr. Youngkin included. That doesn't usually concern me.
They're taking me out with these curse words.
But I'm going to ask you to go back and return the only verdict you can on this evidence. As to count 1, I'm going to ask you to return a not guilty verdict. As to count 2, I'm going to ask the same. As to count 3, I'm going to ask the same. As to count 4, there's some question as to whether or not A, this happened the way they say, B, who it was and see whether or not this even happened the way they're alleging here. That's reasonable doubt. The false report of a crime. I haven't touched on this very much, but you know what? The reality of it is that could have happened too. And it actually would make a hell of a lot more sense. And here's why.
Tell me.
Rather than trying to say Miss Simon wasn't reacting, and I don't really know what the hell this means, but Miss Simon's not reacting the way you would expect someone to. Well, I'm fairly certain I don't react the way people expect me to sometimes, and you probably don't react the way people expect you to sometimes. But when it comes to your child missing or presumed dead, that tends to make people react in a weird way.
What does that have to do with false
I
report?
don't think they've proven false report of a crime. If you woke up and your child wasn't there, what are you supposed to do? And she did report it.
3 hours later.
I tried to say in the beginning that she didn't, but you actually heard the 911 call was made from her phone.
3 hours later.
And Danny was the one that got on and talked because she couldn't speak. We heard the 911 check. I didn't play it. They did. Making a false statement. The October 4th was to pay an existing drug debt. We saw the cash app. We had no evidence to refute that or rebut that. Okay. So could have been existing drug debt, could have been new drugs. I don't know. But I think there's some reasonable doubt on that one.
But before they saw the records, she said $20 until they found the receipt for the $80. She lied.
I don't really care about this one, but you saw her say, I only smoke marijuana. I don't care. I just don't care. Okay. Count 8. Falsely stating the only controlled substance she had used in the past 24 hours was marijuana. Again, I just don't care. I really don't.
So you don't care whether they find her guilty or not guilty?
Case, and that's a murder case. They don't either. Count 9, the Oragel statement. The Oragel statement's bothersome. But I will ask you this, and it's not to make an excuse, but
that's honest.
They're pushing you for an explanation, and you give one. And even if that was the reason why you went and it didn't work out that way, is there really any evidence one way or the other?
Yeah, the lady said she lied.
She said she went to see Misty. Does it matter if her name is Missy, not Misty?
Missy said she didn't.
Does it matter if she got the Oragel or not? Count 10 is the putting Clinton
He's
in a
stretching.
dumpster. I believe there's reasonable doubt.
All right, Lady Steph came through with the Google. Google says malicious murder requires intent to ill. Felony murder, no, not felony. Felony murder doesn't require intent to kill as the death could be accidental or committed by someone trying to stop the crime. So, by those definitions, it sounds like the malicious murder is the higher degree, and the felony murder is the lesser degree. Are we in agreement of that, everybody? Little Lane Jury Box, do we agree that by this definition, malicious murder is the... Oh, no, that's not Lady Steph. That's Lou A. All right. I'm used to Lady Steph coming through. I'm sorry, Lou A. I'm reading it, but I'm used to Lady Steph coming through with the Google. So, Lou says, do we agree, according to this definition, that the malicious count is the stronger count, and that the two other counts of the felony murders is the lesser counts? Are we in agreement of that?
As to that one. Count 11, making a false statement.
Because that's how my poll is based on 8th. That.
These are repetitive and redundant.
I mean, on lesser
counts. This was on October 8th. The prior was, I believe, October 5th. Count 12 is use controlled substances. And
Oh, that's why. Look, Lou say
not really
Google
sure how you
says,
can admit to using
duh.
controlled substances.
Thank goodness for this, because I'm wondering why the hell they're making it so difficult. Unlike many states, Georgia, which this is Georgia, doesn't have degrees of murder, but instead has malice murder and felony murder. Neither requires prosecutors to prove an intent to kill. Boom, bam, pow. There go Lou A coming through with the Google, answer all the questions. Bottom line, they don't have degrees. So in the malice and then the felony, malice is the most severe, felony is the lesser ones. Got it. Good. And the poll, when I dropped the poll, when they finished the opening statements, when I dropped the poll to the Leilani jury box, it's going to be based on just the 3 counts of murder, not the other small charges. I mean, you know what I'm saying. For sake of the Leilani jury box, and when we deliberate, okay, and cast your verdict, it's going to be based on the 3 main counts, malicious and the 2 felony counts of murder. Okay? All right.
I guess they're saying.
Thank you very much, Lou.
But count 10, count 12 to me, I don't understand it. I don't see how it's beyond a reasonable doubt. And I ask for not guilty on that one as well. Count 13 again is the Orgel story.
It's the most serious charge in the state of Georgia, and like a felony,
story yet again.
murder sentence can carry a sentence of life imprisonment with the possibility of parole.
Count 15, Misty again on a different day. So a lot of these are repetitive and redundant. So when you're back there,
Ow.
you have to consider the witnesses, their manner and method of testifying, and what they testified to. Why do I say that? Do you really care if she was sleeping with Craig Weston? Does it really matter?
Why you not going to be voting with him?
To whether or not Quentin Simon was killed intentionally or died.
Why you not going to vote? Because you already know what happened. I already said what happened with the verdict.
Some of the evidence they presented too. And Officer Zerke, I had no doubt she was emotional about it. But again, the only reason to put her up and have her cry was to have her cry. Did she add anything beyond that?
Wow.
No. It was to play on your emotion.
She added in about her pushing in the baby and everything.
How long
in the
they
pool.
played on that emotion. It doesn't change the fact that they haven't produced any evidence. They haven't met their burden.
He is stretching.
Miss Simon killed her son. Give me 1 second.
Look at her. Still not even engaged. No, she didn't interrupt his closing argument.
Go back there, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to ask you to do the hardest thing you've probably ever done in your life.
Wow.
Is to set your emotions aside, to view the evidence, and to return.
Yeah, I said the verdict a couple times. In the last few times.
The state has not proved that Miss Simon killed her child. They have speculated wildly.
Okay, Lou.
But they produced no evidence. And I know that that's a hard thing to ask.
Exactly, lady Steph. He just talking.
Thank you.
I didn't see it.
Mr. Hilliard, turning to
Hold
the
on,
state,
Lemonade.
Ms. Parker.
Lemonade say, don't overlook my comment like you. I did. I don't see it. I was driving on 45 when you was messing with him. I did not see it. Let me see what's going to happen.
That is that we will break.
Hold on. I'm going to go back up and look at the comments. Hold on. Let me rewind it because there's something going to happen. No, I didn't see it in Renee. Because I knew when I was playing with him, you probably could see him, but that you was at work.
Just one moment.
Let me look.
Thank you.
I know you at work. Let me see. Renee.
On October 5th,
This is the rebuttal closing.
in the dark of the night, while the rest of her family slept, Leilani Simon did something incredibly evil. She murdered her own 1-year-old baby
Damn.
and then put his body in a dumpster, where just a few hours later, his body would be destroyed by heavy machinery. And we have proven that beyond a reasonable doubt. During the course of a murder trial, we spend a lot of time talking about the defendant and what the defendant did, because it is our burden to prove beyond a reasonable doubt what the defendant did. But because of that, we don't spend a lot of time talking about the victim, Quentin Simon, in this case. One of the elements that we have to prove in murder is that the defendant murdered a human being. And Quentin Simon was a human being. A real live little boy. He liked to play. He was funny. He was affectionate. He was a good eater. He loved cheese.
Now
He liked
you
to camp
love
out on the
cheese.
floor at Ricardo's house.
I don't
watch
see it in
cartoons.
Renee.
He was a real live boy, a human being, and he shouldn't be thought of as an abstract in this case. He should be thought of as a person. He should be thought of as the little boy who loved Danny. And you heard from
Right.
Paul and from Toledo and say,
Absolutely.
Danny. He should be thought of as a real live human being, a person. A real live human being, a person whose mother put his body in a dumpster. And we have proven that beyond a reasonable doubt. Mr. Dean told you that we don't have to prove motive, and we don't.
Now she crying.
It surprises people sometimes. Motive is not an element of the crime that prosecutors have to prove, but it's just not. But in this case, we know what the motive is, and it's important to understand that motive, to understand why a mother could do something so awful as kill her own child. Because it is. It's something so evil that it's almost unspeakable, incomprehensible that a mother could kill her own 1-year-old baby. So we have to think about the state of mind that this woman was in at that time. She was deeply, deeply unhappy with her life. She had 3 really small children. She had a 3-year-old, a 20-month-old, and an infant. In the best of circumstances, if you had family support, if you had your own place to live, if you had plenty of money, even in great circumstances, having to take care of a 3-year-old, a
Janae,
20-month-old,
and Renee, I don't see your comment.
It would be so hard and so stressful.
Where's that diamond over what?
But to add on to that stress, she didn't have those other things. Her relationship with her mother was not good. Her mother was gone a lot, so that was not a real support for her. Her relationship with Danny was falling apart. Danny was getting
Damn, Lou.
their relationship was falling apart. They didn't have
Not frying cornbread.
She was drug addicted. She and Danny
That sounds
were
good.
living in
That's
her
that water
mother's
cornbread.
house in one room with these 3 children. And
It must be a court rule that they have decided to not enter into the court the fact that the grandmother had custody of those 2 children. They must have ruled against that information coming into the court. Period. They had to have. They had to.
when we talk about her relationship with Craig or the fact that she had 3 children with 3 different fathers. We're not trying to call her a slut. Nobody is trying to slut shame the defendant. We wouldn't do that. This is 2024. That's not what this is about. When we talk about those things, what we're trying to show you is that this woman's self-esteem came from men. And part of why she was so deeply unhappy was because Danny was rejecting her. And it made her feel horrible because that's where her self-esteem came from. Mm-hmm. And that's why at 22 years old, she already had 3 children with 3 different fathers, because men were so important to how she saw herself and how she felt about herself.
Push through, Crystal.
And that's what was part of why she felt so awful that night. You saw the suicide video that she did, where she talked about how unhappy she was. She even said to her children, I can't love you because I can't love myself. It doesn't seem she ever intended to kill herself. It was something she was going to send to Danny probably for attention, for him to feel sorry for her, because she was manipulative of Danny, very manipulative of Danny. And the reason that she started this sexual relationship with Craig was to fill a void there. And this sexual relationship with Craig was a new thing. It's something that had just happened in the weeks before this. So on the night that she killed Quentin, Danny had rejected her. She's using drugs. She's on cocaine, marijuana,
and Percocet. Lord have mercy.
You saw her go and buy beer at the convenience store. She's under the influence. She said in her own statements that drug use made her angry and impulsive. So she's unhappy. She's mad at Danny. She's under the influence of drugs that make her angry and impulsive. And so she goes to Arkwright looking for Craig, because Craig is where she has been getting that need for male attention that makes her feel better about herself. And Craig's not there that night. That's why it matters, and why we made Craig come in here and testify, because he wasn't there.
Excuse me.
So she couldn't get that need fulfilled.
Let me just say, y'all had me, you've been having me looking for this comment, girl. I'm like, I don't see the comment, child. Okay? Girl, I stopped messing with Rock. He on the bed now, all tucked up sleep. Okay? It's hell for review. Thank you, Diamond. Now let's listen to this lady, girl, because she is, what do y'all think about this rebuttal closing argument from the defense? What do y'all think about it? And why do y'all think there was a need for a rebuttal closing statement? And what do y'all think of the rebuttal closing statement so far? This is very rare. I don't think I've ever seen a rebuttal closing statement. And to me, she's coming in and driving home the points like, hey, we have proved this. We have, proved, you know what I'm saying? It's very different, and she's going real strong.
Feel better about herself. So instead, she does something so drastic. She killed Quentin.
I don't think it could be.
And in the act of killing Quentin, she became a sympathetic person and got Danny's attention.
They couldn't bring in none of the CPS stuff. I know that for a fact. But they said no to the CPS stuff.
And Danny ran out of work to be by her side. That's what she wanted. That was the manipulation. And it's so hard to believe a mother would do that. But that's why you have to think about her frame of mind and how low and desperate she felt that night, and that she was under the influence of drugs that she admits make her angry and impulsive. That's what happened.
What's she finna write?
You also may wonder, why Quentin? Why that child? And
Damn, she moving fast.
Quentin was her disposable child. She did not like Quentin's father. She loved Zane. Zane was her ride or die. You heard Michelle McCarta talk about how she would say Zane had been through everything with her. He was her ride or die. And Sky,
Maybe that's a Georgia thing.
The baby infant was Danny's child. She needed Sky to keep Danny around. Quentin was disposable. She didn't really like Quentin. We heard testimony about how she would call Quentin names.
Yeah.
We heard testimony about her hitting him, about her pushing him in the pool. She didn't do this to any of her other children. She would feed Zane before she fed Quentin. She didn't do that to any of her other children. Quentin was disposable. And so she disposed of him.
Damn.
But that's my Quentin, and not
wow.
one of her children.
Well, I don't know, Lady Steph. We're going to have to see.
Her plan did not last. Her story came apart really, really fast. Because the police, when a child is missing, it is all hands on deck, and they're going to start using every resource they can to find this child and see what's going on in this household. And it was within a very short period of time.
Remember that we saw all the cops
from
all in places
on those slot cameras leaving home during the night when she
the red light camera.
So it was within hours that they knew she was lying.
Uh-huh.
The defense also said that we don't like to talk about Danny, and that's not true. Like, we talked about Danny a lot. There's nothing about Danny that makes us uncomfortable talking about him or why he didn't do this. There's overwhelming evidence that
not that woman
killed Quentin Simon and not Danny. The defense also kept talking about Danny being up at 3:00 in the morning and seeing Quentin. That did not come into evidence in this trial. Go back and check your notes. That is not something that is in evidence. The only mistake Danny made was in the morning when he left at 5:20 in the morning. He originally
I don't know, y'all.
And he talked about that. He just assumed it because he woke up in the dark, got ready for work, quietly left the house. He just assumed Quentin was there then. He did not go over to the pack and play and look in and say, hey, Quentin, you there? He didn't do that. And so because he had not seen anything weird when he left home, he just assumed that Quentin was there and it was fine. And when pressed and questioning, he explained that he had not actually gone over to the pack and play and looked and made sure that Quentin was there. That is the only inconsistency in his statement, and it is very understandable. The defense has started trying to suggest that Danny could have done this, but Danny's not the one that was at the dumpster in the middle of the night throwing a bag of trash in. A dumpster that later went to an area of the landfill where Quentin's body was found. It was not Danny's phone that was at the dump. It was not Danny's car driving to the dump. It was her. She drove to the dump, and she admitted that she was there. Mr. Dean spent a lot of time making it clear about where this trash went to the landfill. The landfill is huge. And Quentin's body was found in the specific part of the landfill where the dumpster she was throwing his body into put its trash. Otherwise, he never would have been found, which is what she wanted. She didn't want him to be found because then forevermore she could be the mother of a missing child and sympathetic. I want to talk to you about the burden of proof. Mr. Hilliard said the state hates the burden of proof. We don't. We welcome that burden. It is our burden, and we welcome it with open arms because we want the right person convicted. We should have to prove
she's
beyond
good
a reasonable doubt that she's the person that committed this crime.
I think she is so good.
And she is. We don't hate reasonable doubt at all. Mr. Dean talked about reasonable doubt. I'm happy to talk about reasonable doubt and burden of proof. Reasonable doubt does not mean.
Per Google, thank you, Lou. Closing rebuttal arguments are allowed in federal court. Rule 29.1 states that after the defendant's closing argument, the government can respond in rebuttal. And this is the state, so that is the government. Okay, but so at the end of the day thing, nobody else can say nothing, right? I like this lady. I like her delivery. It's so strong and assertive, and it's kind of like any type of like doubt I may have had after the defense said all that different word soup and stuff. Now with her talking, I'm like, you damn right. You know what I'm saying? That's how I feel.
Suggested that we have to prove
Like, yeah, that's right.
Every fact that we put up before you. What we have to prove
Common
beyond
sense.
reasonable doubt is the
We saw
elements
her at the
of
dumpster.
crimes, and we have done that. It means a doubt with a reason, not just any doubt, but a doubt with a reason. Common sense. So you go back in that jury room when we're done, and using your common sense, you ask yourselves,
I just said that common sense.
Murder couldn't sign. And the answer to that is absolutely yes, she did. Absolutely. And all of the evidence points to her. All of it.
Wow. This is definitely back to an emotional appeal. I know the defense right now is kicking themselves. This is definitely a emotional appeal.
Mr. Hilliard also
given by a female lawyer.
About emotion in this case, and yes, this is an emotional case. Murder cases.
I just said that
because a human being has died, and the murder of a really small child.
Not back up and go home.
There's going to be emotion. People who testify are going to have emotion. We're going to have emotion when we talk about it. It's unavoidable. But we're not asking you to find her guilty based on emotion. We're asking you to find her guilty based on all of the facts and evidence that we have put before you. The 34 witnesses that have come in and testified and told very specifically how these events happened. All of the statements that you've heard the defendant make, where she changed her story over and over and over and over.
She stayed lying.
That's what we're asking you to make this finding on of her guilt, the actual evidence. And when it comes to her emotion, that's fair game. You absolutely can consider her emotion and her demeanor when you're evaluating this case. And it's important to look at her emotion because
we've been looking at her emotion. Simply brilliant,
people
right?
React differently to trauma.
In most jurisdictions, the defense can counter
anywhere within
and rebuttal argument
what is believable. They just were not.
There's
some people when something terrible happens to them, they shut down.
We might be here all night.
Stoic, that's totally normal. There are other people who become absolutely hysterical. They can't even talk. Absolutely normal. There's a wide range of human emotions.
Right.
What is not normal is for a mother to wake up and find her child missing and react the way this woman did. She didn't run upstairs to Paul, who was at home, and say, Paul, Quentin's missing. Have you seen Quentin? It's Quentin up here. She didn't do that.
Right.
She didn't go wake up Paul. Paul had no idea what was going on until the police were there, which was 20, 30 minutes later.
She didn't call the cops for 3 hours.
Running out in the yard, in the woods, looking for her child. She didn't do that. She called Danny. Because that's the whole motive. She wanted Danny's attention. That's why she did this. And so Danny's the first person she called. And she didn't do another thing until Danny got home. Danny got home and found her just standing around outside. She
smoking cigarettes
for Quentin. There is no mother who would not look for their child frantically under these circumstances. She had not called the police. She'd not asked for help. She'd not called over to
Google say the defense can do a rebuttal to the rebuttal, but only if they bring up a new point. And it's still to the judge's discretion. So we gonna see. But baby, this lady is nailing. This lady is bringing home all the points again. And then it's really based off of common sense, reasonable doubt, common sense what I believe to be true, right? And she hitting this stuff on the head. Let's go, lady.
And said, "Hey, Quentin's missing. Do y'all have him?"
Thank
She
you,
didn't
Lou.
do any of those things. She waited for Danny to come home
Wow.
because that was the whole point, was to get Danny's attention.
I didn't
And
even
it
think about
wasn't
that.
until Danny was at home and he had reached out to the McCartas. Michelle suggested they call the police, that
Right.
things started happening. That is not normal.
No, it's not.
Her lying through the course of this investigation is not normal.
Not at all.
It's not normal because she wasn't a worried mother. She was a murderer trying to hide what she did. We cannot prove to you the way she killed Quentin. We can't, because she made sure that his body,
I know, right? I would want to be the last voice heard too.
Was ground to nothing but bits of bone. And under the law,
Very true,
defendants are not rewarded for that. The law does not require us to prove how she killed him when she's the one that hid how she killed him. You're not going to hear anything in the judge's charges that say we have to prove how she killed him.
Or a motive.
The defense can say it all they want, but that is not an element of the crime that we have to prove. And please listen to the law, because you will hear that. We don't have to prove that. It is not the fault of the state that we can't prove that. It is her fault, because she made sure that his body would be in such a state that we
I think because this lady's so expressive, the camera keep going to her.
be found. And if it weren't for the work of a whole bunch of people who really cared about getting justice for this child, enough so that they would put all this.
Y'all, look at the defense attorney over there, the more kinder one. He over there biting his goddamn nails, okay? They hate this lady right now.
Year on and dig through stinky trash trying to find him.
He over there biting his nails like, Lord have mercy. Yeah, she be looking mean when she go check off them damn points.
That's also part of how we know that this is not an accident. Her behavior and her statements.
It's conniving and
If
manipulative.
something had happened to Quentin and she had found him injured, not responsive in his pack and play or something like that, she would have called for help. She would have woken up Paul. If Danny was still there, she would ask Danny for help.
I bet she must got some type of family member there. She didn't look backwards a couple of times.
That would be normal. There is zero evidence in this case that this child had some accidental drug overdose.
Very interesting. I wonder if Leilani actually thought it through to the point where she knew his body was going to be mutilated.
So once he was in there for the night.
I don't know, but that's horrible.
On shelves trying to touch stuff. And
like, did she know that did she think about the compactness?
And
that's a good question.
Right after they bought them.
That's cruel.
Also, we tested his brain matter. There was no indication of any drugs in his brain. This is just not an accident. We went above and beyond to rule out every other possibility for this child to death. Medical, accident, SIDS, it's none of those things. It's that his mother murdered.
She been pointing at that girl and called her murderer about 5 times. She know her goose cooked. She look like a cooked
One
goose.
other thing I want to say about Danny is Danny leaving. Danny did leave town. He didn't just leave. Like, law enforcement knew he was leaving, and they were still in touch with him. He didn't just run away. Danny had.
Hey, she made it to the work shift, Miss Steph 219. Finally off. Woo, I like this lady. She's straight to the point. Yeah, she getting it in. She getting it in.
It's totally understandable. Does not suggest any kind of guilt in any way whatsoever. His phone was still tapped at that point. Law enforcement was still in contact with him. There is just nothing to suggest that Danny had anything to do with it.
That part, Lady Steph.
Danny
double stepping.
Danny broke down.
Yeah, he started crying a couple of times.
And it was very genuine. And you could tell that he had emotion for this child and was sad. about what had happened to this child. It was a very realistic, normal emotional response that he had.
Oh, she got some slides.
A child's mother should be the one person in the world that they can count on to keep them safe.
Mm-hmm.
Parents have a visceral, emotional need to keep their children safe. It is normal, it is biological, but that is not what Leilani Simon did. She murdered her child.
Oh, wow. She said that a lot.
She put his body in a dumpster where he would be taken to a landfill and his little precious body would be ripped to bits by heavy machinery to cover up what she did. Leilani Simon is not a mother. She is a monster.
Oh, wow.
And I do not use that word lightly. But what this woman did in this case is horrific.
Look how little
She
he
is
is.
absolutely a monster.
So
We
tiny.
cannot undo the horror of what she did that night. We can't undo it. It's done. We can't undo it. This child is gone, and nothing we do or say can bring him back. We cannot give him back the 80 or so years that he should have had ahead of him, a long life, all the things he should have gotten to experience. We can't give him back to people that care about him. We can't do that. But what we can do for baby Quentin now is give him justice. He deserves justice. You can give him the justice he deserves.
Ooh.
And you can give her the justice she deserves.
Ooh. She ought to drop the mic on that part right there.
So, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, at this point, that will be the last you will hear the attorney speak directly to you.
Ooh, that was
So
good.
at this point, before I release you for lunch, I'm going
I
to
saw him
remind you
checking
to
his
follow the
watch.
court's instructions. Do not discuss the case with anyone, not even.
All right, you guys. So now comes the moment of truth for the Lit Lane jury box. I pose to you guys the question of what's your verdict? Okay? Guilty of all, not guilty of all, guilty of lesser degree. And what I'm talking about on these, I'm starting to poll, is the murder charges. They got the malicious murder, which is the strongest one. They got the lesser counts of murder, the 2 felony counts. So, Lit Lane jury box, put in your vote. You're voting whether she's not guilty. Whether she's guilty of all. I put that wrong. I think the guilty of all mean guilty of malicious murder, not guilty of anything, or guilty to the lesser counts. That's what I mean by the poll. Sorry for the mistype. We got 18 people up in here. We got 7 votes. Miss Steph 219 say I voted already. Oh, I probably need. Let me vote. Let me exercise my right to vote. I can't even see the poll. Oh, there we go. Oh, it don't even let me vote. Ciao. Okay, voted. Hey, watching, thank you. Watching, you one of my most what is called? You a highlight subscriber in my YouTube studio. I'm gonna start posting it. That's something new. Where they say who got the most engagement, like with comments and stuff like that. You like number 2. Yeah, you like number 2 as for engagement watching. Thank you. Okay, let me find the verdict video. Hold on. And then when I find the verdict video, that's when I'm gonna close the poll. Let me go ahead and go to the verdict. Pull up the verdict video. Hold on. Verdict. Day 10. Y'all, they got another trial going on right now that's so interesting, but I promise y'all not to bring y'all another case with babies in it, right? But right now, Court TV is airing or streaming the cult baby trial, where this lady was in this polygamous relationship, like a little mini cult, and she ended up stabbing her baby, and she putting in a plea of insanity. It's interesting too. But that's what's going on Court TV right now. Hold on, let me find this verdict video. It's day 10. Boom, here you go. Okay, pause. Okay, let me come back to, let me close the poll out. And so, what say ye in poll? When I end the poll, am I going to be able to see it? Oh, Lord. Oh, no, there you go. What say ye? We are finding the Lit Lane jury box find the defendant, Leilani Simon, guilty of malicious murder and all other counts by 71%. Guilty of a lesser degree, 28%. And nobody from the Lit Lane jury box find her not guilty. The Lit Lane jury box has spoken, and we appreciate y'all for voting. Voting and putting in your verdict. Let's see what the jury in Georgia had to say. Let's see if our verdict matches theirs. Thank y'all for voting. Let's see. Y'all throwing y'all handcuffs in here? Let me see. Verdict. There we go. Baby, Judge Stokes look good by her little desk light. And there's always some man involved, but I'm not doing another case with no baby. It'll be like a couple of trials before I do that again because it's very emotional. We're going to start next week, the sex torture trial. And that trial is off the chain. I watched it, and I have no problem.
Let the record reflect
It's
that
very
counsel for both
interesting.
parties are present. Ms. Simon is present with
The
her
judge look good by her
counsel.
desk light, that little
I
orange
have
light
received
to the pretty.
a note, and it says we have reached a verdict.
Yeah.
And Mr. Bryant, if you would
Of the
mark
count
the
of
court's
malicious
exhibit
murder.
as well. I believe we're up to 7. Okay. And
see how she got that little
if the
orange
parties
amber
wish to
light
see this
on
note,
her
you're
desk? Her
welcome.
little, what is it called, reading lamp,
Okay, then I'll hand this
and
back
it's
down
making like
to
a
Mr.
gold cast on her. She look pretty.
Blake. Okay. So
The lady from Florida, what's Tashelle? She not in court yet, Renee.
and you
Tashelle,
may
she not. Her name
look, she's
Tashelle. She not
calling
in
the
court
jury.
yet.
Thank you.
Do you have a court date, Renee, when that's starting? Because when I looked it up, she wasn't in trial yet. Yeah, make her look pretty. But I got you on Renee. If they show that one, I'm going to cover it. Oh yeah. Did you see when I showed the brother Renee, her brother and his stupid self, and what he was saying? Did you see that clip?
Jurors entering.
All right, let's see what they say. Verdict has been reached. What's her name? Tashelle Harris, I think. I think I got it on my calendar, as a matter of fact.
Jury room is clear, Your Honor.
No, I don't have it on
All
my
right,
watch.
thank you, Deputy
Let me
Smith.
put it on my watch calendar.
All right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you may have a seat. Thank you very much. And I understand that you have received a verdict. I just want to say, first of all, to
I'm putting
those
it on
who
my
are in
watch
the
for
audience,
trial dates.
there has been a jury verdict reached. To everyone in attendance, and many of you have been here for quite some time, I will ask that there not be any emotional reactions and no disruptive outbursts. So at this point,
I put it on here
I
so I
am
can be
going
checking for the
to
dates,
ask the
so
foreperson
I
to
can
please
plan it
stand.
out.
Juror 5,
All right, here we go.
and have you reached a verdict?
Yes, we have.
Was it unanimous?
Yes, it was.
Has a verdict been filed in or filled in and signed and dated by you?
Yes, it has.
And if you would please hand the
I
verdict
didn't see the
to
jurors.
Deputy
Wait a
Solomon.
minute. Wait a minute. Wait. How you saw the juror's face?
And if you would
Oh.
filled in and signed and dated by you.
Yes, it has.
And if you would please hand the verdict to Deputy Solomon. Thank you, Deputy Solomon, for handing that up.
I didn't see no jurors. Where you saw the jurors at? You nervous?
I'm going to ask counsel to approach and take a look at the verdict form.
Why? When they do that at? Georgia is so different. Oh, when the judge asked me to be seated? Okay, I'm going to have to go back and look. I've never seen them say, come up and look at the verdict before they say the verdict. Have y'all seen that before? Oh, look, all the bailiffs that came up in there. Look how many bailiffs in the back of the court that hadn't been there. I guess they like that because of any emotional outburst or something like that, you know? They all whispering and stuff. They all women. And one dude.
As to the verdict, it reads as follows. We, the jury, find as follows: malice murder. We find the defendant guilty. Count 2, felony murder. We find the defendant guilty. Count 3, felony murder. We find the defendant guilty. Count 4, concealing the death of another. We find the defendant guilty. Count 5, false report of a crime. We find the defendant guilty. Count 6, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 7, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 8, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 9, making a false statement.
Right,
we
Diamond.
find the defendant guilty. Count 10, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty.
Janae, that's a pretty picture.
Count 11,
They
making
didn't
a
count
false
her
statement.
guilty
We
on
find the defendant
everything.
guilty. Count 12, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 13, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 14, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty.
I was passed out.
Count 15, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 16, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty.
Wow.
Count 17, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. Count 18, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty. And count 19, making a false statement. We find the defendant guilty.
Wow.
Okay.
I don't know if they're going to do the sentence. Let's see.
Is there anything further from the state? From the defense? Certainly. So, members of the jury, this is something that very often happens. You will be
Look how the
asked questions
bailiffs
by
be
the
standing right
clerk.
behind them when they do
3
this
questions
part.
in particular, I believe.
They be ready for
and simply
anything to
answer the
happen.
questions.
In case she
Madam
lose her damn mind and try to jump over the stairs.
Was this your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Juror number 2. Juror number 2. Was that your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Thank you. Juror number 3, was that your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Thank you. Juror number 4, was that your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
I think it's starting to hit
Juror
us
number
now.
5, was that your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Juror number 6, was that your verdict then?
He's starting to
Yes.
get
Is
it
this your
now.
verdict now?
Ooh.
Juror number 7, was that your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Juror number 8, was that your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your
Wow.
verdict now?
Yes.
Juror number 9, was that your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Juror number 10, was that your verdict
She
then?
look like she about to
Is
fall
this
the
your
fuck
verdict
out.
now?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh,
Juror number
explode.
Yes.
Was that your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Juror number 12, was that your verdict then?
Yes.
Is this your verdict now?
Yes.
Anything further at this time with the juries?
No, Your Honor.
With the jurors. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your service, for your time, for your energy.
I still
This
feel
has been
like, and I know they keep saying about everybody emotions is different, but even to me at this moment, her emotional reaction, her emotional response right now is not relative to what's going on here. You know what I'm saying? Yes, she upset, and yeah, I know she's trying to keep her composure, but if you innocent, even though they found you guilty, wouldn't that be an outcry? Wouldn't that be more of an emotion, right? And then if you're guilty, it's just her emotional response is just so weird and improportionate. It's like it just don't fit, especially when we seen them tears roll down her face harder, right? Lady Steph, you think she medicated? You were thinking the same thing. It doesn't fit. It's just so strange and peculiar. But she's strange and peculiar.
an important
The whole thing
more
is
than 2 weeks
unnatural.
now that you've spent with the court, and your time and attention is deeply appreciated.
Little Lady
I
Jury
am going
Box,
to
y'all
release
time
you.
and attention is deeply
If anyone wants to
appreciated as
speak
well.
with you about your deliberations and you want to, you may do so now. You're being released from the instructions. You're not under any obligation to speak with anyone about your experience, but you may do so if you choose to. I am ordering that there be no contact with the jurors in the courthouse or on the courthouse property. But I do release you at this point. Thank you. You're free to go.
Where the hell they supposed to talk to media at? They own house. They finna. I want to see them take her out. Oh, now I feel bad for her. You know what I'm saying? Now I feel bad for her, but I still think she's guilty. She either medicated or has dissociative behavior, which would contribute to why she was able to murder her son. Right? I truly think.
All clear, Judge.
All right, everyone may
Let me
please
say.
have a seat.
Let me see what they're gonna say. I want to see what the sentencing gonna be. If they don't sentence her now,
Sentencing
I
will
will
not
show.
occur at this
Oh,
time.
see?
It's going to be scheduled for another date.
Okay,
That date will be determined. And
I will
of course,
give
if
y'all an
there's
update on the
anything to be
sentencing.
presented in aggravation or mitigation, I'll hear it at that time. All right. Is there anything further at this point? from
I'll
the
do an
state?
update for the sentencing for her and for that
From the
dude.
defense.
He got 30 years, but I'll do a
Right.
formal
Thank you as well
update
for
from the
their
young dog
service from the
trial.
state as well as from the defense. And with that, we are adjourned.
They finna walk her out. Where her family at up in them? Oh, I thought they were finna put handcuffs on them. Damn. And there go the conclusion, y'all. Okay. Now, I'm going to say this because we've been here a long time and it's late. It's almost like 12:30 where some people at 9:30, 11:30 where I'm at. But I'm going to say this. My last remarks is I do think she's very guilty. I think she should have been found guilty. I believe that the jury got it right, both the Leilani jury and the real jury there. But I do not think that she intended to kill, to murder, to unalive her baby. And I'm not being like a bleeding heart. But to me, how I see it is that she hit that baby. She overreacted. She acted violently. And that's how the baby got unalive. Do I think she said, oh, I'm going to go ill him? No. But did she act irrationally and violently towards that baby? I really believe it. And that she tried to hide it. She did mean to get caught. Yeah, she didn't mean to get caught. Yeah. Someone mentioned it the other day. There is some disassociation, disconnected from her thoughts, feelings as a protective measure, response to trauma, drugs, mental issues, health issues. Oh, I have definitely in the past disassociated from stuff. Oh, I know you men didn't. You see, I put that in there for you. Must have been you at Lady Steph. Must have been you. I know I didn't been disassociated from things in order to get through different trauma and stuff like that. So that's a real deal, right? You can totally zoom out from like have like a jump out of your own body so you can get through the experience. So hey, I've experienced that, you know. So again, I thank you guys. You know, this took a long time for this particular trial, and because it was taking so long, we didn't even get to watch every witness, everything. I left out a lot of the forensics and stuff like that because we was just going too long with this trial. The next trial is the Sean Finnegan trial. And a while back, a few months ago, I was sharing that trial on my wall. But I think it's absolutely a great next case because it's very salacious, it's very tripped out. The witnesses are all a trip, and the story and the crime is horrific and also almost like a movie. It's real life, but it's almost like a movie plot, right? So next week we're gonna start the Sean Finnegan trial, and it's the sex torture trial. Now don't go looking it up. Join us here in the Lane Jury Box, okay? Thank you guys for y'all tuning in. Thank y'all for supporting this content. Y'all have wait a minute. I need to check my Instagram. Thank you, Donna. I don't have Instagram on my phone. I need to put it back on my phone. I will try to get that done. But now that you told me to check my Instagram, I will do that. And we can definitely do that. Tomorrow I'm gonna have a like not the time I normally come on here for this. Tomorrow we're gonna do a Lit Lane Pit Crew, and I'm gonna tell y'all about how I got my smile back. And I'm gonna show y'all some pictures. I took pictures to show y'all. Great trial watch, great commentary, very engaging. Thank you, Lou. Thank you, Donna. Thank you, everybody. Janae, Renee, Lady Steph, Steph 219, Sunshine, Diamond Forever. We didn't have some people that's been here for all the time and most of the time. I want to thank y'all, Winter, for just keep coming through. Okay, we'll have some fun content and stuff like that over the weekend and everything. And I'm gonna try to start fitting in like that afternoon live that's a little bit more lighthearted and keep the trial watches for the evening. Okay. All right, y'all. Y'all be blessed. Don't be stressed. You can handle all the rest. Don't forget, justice is exactly that. You're going to get what you deserve in this life, either right here while you're living it or after it's all said and done. Good night, y'all. Child, that was my Jerry Springer and them final thought.